across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I do hope you're well on this rather humid Sunday morning. Apparently a heat wave is on the way. I welcome it. We need some good news, don't we? Very excited about today's show. So many big stories to get through. And it's the interview they all wanted. Australia's Nigel Farage. Pauline Hanson live on the show in the 8th hour. Get your questions in now. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Pauline Hanson, very worried about mass immigration in Australia, very worried about an economy that doesn't live within its means, very worried about the cost of net zero. Does that sound familiar? For Australia, read the UK, except it's worse than that, because Australia's Nigel Farage, Pauline Hanson, has said that the UK is a sad, sorry island. Is she right? Well, she's live on the show later. You will not want to miss it. Australia's Nigel Farage. She's the leader of the, what's it called again? Something Nation Party. One Nation. It's early doors. I mean, folks, cut me a little slack. 6:04 in the morning. It is a Sunday. So many big stories to get through. And we bring you some horrible breaking news as we come on air. German police are conducting a manhunt as they search for a radical Islamist who mowed down scores of people with a van at Berlin's annual Gay Pride March. Now, this has just happened in the last few hours. We're going to bring you more as we get it, but we already have one fatality and 16 people in hospital with serious injuries, many others suffering deep trauma. And it begs an important question. When is the West going to wake up to the threat of radical Islam? Why are we so relaxed about this wicked ideology? Look at those security barriers all over the country. Why do we have to have them at Trafalgar Square, at our Christmas markets, in our parks, on our bridges? Why does Western Europe need these security measures? Because there is hatred on our own shores. 16 people mowed down at a gay pride celebration in Berlin, but it could just as easily be Manchester or London. When is the West going to wake up to the threat of radical Islam? Because if it was the far right, who are, of course, wicked, if it was the far right, you wouldn't hear the end of it from establishment media. All you're going to get in Berlin, as you've got whenever these Islamist attack happens, the Manchester Arena bomber, you never hear the end of it when it's the far right. But if it's radical Islam, we just have thoughts and prayers and bouquets of flowers and hand-wringing. Wake up! And we have a new Prime Minister. Tomorrow is the one-week anniversary. What is your school report for Andy Burnham? Now, he's talked a lot about saving the pubs. Well, I'll get to that in Dolan's dispatch. He's going to save you 45 quid from your electricity bill every year. I mean, don't spend it all at once. But he hasn't mentioned illegal immigration once, even though the Iranian regime are using illegal immigration to get terrorists into the country. So my question this morning is a big one. It's wide-ranging, but it boils down to this. He's not mentioned illegal immigration once. Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? That's what I want. I don't know. Will he? 0344 499 1000. Does he care? Does Andy Burnham care about illegal immigration? Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? 0344 499 1000. Let's have a conversation together about this. Let's have some fun. Text the word talking your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note as well. We love a voice note. We've got the dream team today. I'm so excited to say a very fresh pair of legs. Engineer Dave is currently resting and recuperating. He's having a well-deserved holiday. He'll be back in a couple of weeks once I've won my tug-of-love war with talkSPORT for his services. Very shortly, I'm having showdown talks with the team at talkSPORT. I'm going to sit down with Jeff Stelling, Adrian Durham and Ray Parler over drinks. And I will prevail. But in the meantime, whilst lovely Engineer Dave is on holiday, we have Matthew, who is the boy wonder. Got to say, I think I'm sounding good this morning, thanks to Matthew. He's pressing the buttons, and I'm here to press your buttons. Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? Give Tommy a call. He's taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. Our glorious leader, Dean Spencer, is with us. Of course, he always does the big numbers. He's been brought back in to rescue the show. And what's he done this weekend? He's got us Andrew Loney, one of the biggest names in royal journalism, and Pauline Hanson, Australia's Nigel Farage, all on today's show. And directing our TV output. Well, was it Steve Jobs said you will not be successful unless you have A players? Well, I've got Neha, who is A++. She's directing our TV output. Come on, Neha, let's give that old camera a wobble. There you go, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, that's a hardcore wobble, isn't it? And we got the papers. Look at this. If you're watching on YouTube, look at that. See, that's live telly, isn't it? Oh, no, I've not done it again, have I? I keep breaking the camera, and it's worth 10 grand, 20 grand. Don't want to get in trouble with management. Folks, will Andy Burnham stop the boats? This is Talk, Let's Talk. Now, listen, you are part of a special club. You're the 6 a.m. club. This show does crazy numbers, and we're very, very lucky. We do kind of Rocket Man numbers, which is fantastic, and it's all down to you. The 6 a.m. hour does particularly well in proportion to whoever's awake, because it is Sunday morning. But we're massive at 6, but it's an elite group. So if you're listening right now on your DAB Plus radio or via an app or online on your laptop, your smart speaker or your tablet, well, you are a very, very special person. If you are listening on the radio, however you're consuming this show right now at 6:09, you're part of the Talk Breakfast elite, the exclusive members of the 6 a.m. club. It's great to have you. And I'm going to tell you that I think it's the best hour of the show. So can I congratulate you on being part of this private members club of the 6 a.m. group? This is the boardroom, really, isn't it? This is the Dolan boardroom that you've entered for 6 a.m. The reason I say that is 6 a.m. It's the first hour. The caffeine is not yet coursing through my veins. I'm still navigating the day, and my brain is half on. And what that means is you get even more authenticity. See, by 9, I'm cooking with gas. This top-level broadcasting colossus by 9. But what's good about the 6 is it's a little more uncultivated and real, and you get the true Dolan. So it's great to have your company. And honestly, I really think that the best bit of the show is 6 a.m, because it's when I'm unguarded. I've woken up, I've thrown my suit on, I've jumped on my little moped, I've come down. Dean Spencer has handed me a lukewarm cup of tea, and he's like, get yourself on air and let's go and make history. That's what he says to me every time. He says, get yourself on air and go and make history. Every day he says that. It's like working for Sir Alf Ramsey under Dean, I would say. Do you know what I mean? Or Alex Ferguson. It's of that level, and he gets me going. But in the 6 a.m. hour, I haven't quite woken up yet. It's like you've shaken me out of my slumber and put me straight on the radio and on the telly. And I think it's a great thing. So if you want to see the real Dolan and you want the real Talk Breakfast, of course, all of it's real, but at 6 a.m, it's especially real. It's when my guard is down, and it's when I get angry. Let's do the front pages. The Mail on Sunday. £96 billion tax raid to pay for Burnham's big spree. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you? Labour said before the election they were going to raise taxes by £6 billion, which is far too much. Taxes should be going down. For the left, let me just help them, because you understand it. My team here at Talk, who are all A players, understand it. You get it, I get it, and my team get it. But those who govern us don't. If you put up taxes, people have less money in their pockets to spend Our economy is based on consumption. 60% of our economy is based on you and I going shopping, buying stuff and consuming stuff. Purchasing clothes from Zara and Next and M&S. Having a nice Wagamama or a couple of drinks at the JD Wetherspoon or the All Bar One or the Three Horseshoes down the road from you. So our economy, more than half of it is based on consumption. So if you tax people, there is less money with which they can then consume things. So that's a problem. And if you tax businesses, well, they're not stupid. They have a spreadsheet and they've got a bottom line. And so if they're paying more taxes and if they've got more red tape, which equals more cost, and if there's a disincentive to hire people because the minimum wage has gone up and the workers' rights means that you can hire some idiot called Steve who's useless and you can't get rid of him after day one, or there's somebody called Big Stephanie and she's been with you for a week and then her cat died and she wants 6 months off for bereavement and there's nothing you can do about it without a tribunal that you'll lose. So what then happens is that businesses are so taxed, they don't hire people. In fact, they lay people off. Those people that don't then have a job require unemployment benefit, housing benefit, and all the rest of it. So the progressive left, they don't understand this. They're incredibly thick, and I'll tell you for why. People like Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves and Andy Burnham, I promise you, they're not stupid people. They're not. They're not stupid people. But ideology makes you thick. If you have an ideology, you become stupid. It's like those people on the pro-Hamas so-called peace marches, right? University-educated, lanyard-class numpties. They're not stupid. In fact, they're hyper-educated. But they're in an ideology which is the West is evil, Britain is evil, Israel is evil, and therefore, by dint, Jewish people are evil. And they don't think. And they get behind the pro-Palestine thing. Well, Palestine is run by an organisation called Hamas, who are a prescribed terror group, although you wouldn't know that if you listen to the BBC, who like to consider them freedom fighters. Still don't call them terrorists, which they are. Hamas run Palestine. So if you go pro-Palestine, that's like going pro-Germany in the 1930s when the Chancellor was Hitler. Hamas run Palestine. So that's a problem, isn't it? Anyhow, but it's ideology, you see. They can't see that. And they forget the Second World War and the Holocaust. Do you not think history teaches us a lesson, which is maybe this time side with the Jews? Am I missing something here? Maybe this time, do you remember the Second World War and the Holocaust and all that? Maybe this time, shall we get behind the Jews, perhaps? Is that controversial in the extreme? Should we get behind the only democracy in the Middle East? And the only country in the Middle East that has an annual gay pride celebration is Israel. Why are the left not pro-Israel? It's the only country in the Middle East with gay pride, and it's the only democracy in the Middle East. And now I've got to tell you that the left are going to be in a right pickle because of what's just happened in Berlin. The police are hunting an Islamist who got in a van. First of all, there are reports that there was a machete attack on all of these gay people and trans people and people just living their best life. And then this alleged Islamist gets into a van. We don't know whether there were accomplices, but they are looking for one man, who then mows down crowds at this gay pride celebration yesterday in Berlin. And he's a radical Islamist. One person is dead, tragically, and 16 seriously injured. Now, this is a very left-wing progressive event. It is the Pride celebrations. I support it. Good luck to them. You live your life as you wish. Gay, straight, bisexual, pansexual, whatever that is. If you're called Steve and you've decided you're Rebecca, fantastic. I'm not going to say you are a biological woman because you're not. And I have the Supreme Court to support that opinion, as well as every biology textbook ever published. But if you want to call yourself Loretta and you used to be Steve, good luck to you. You're not a woman, but I will respect your decision to live as a lady and wear a dress. Good luck to you. I'm an ultra-libertarian. So this is a left-wing, progressive, very woke event, no problem, over in Berlin, the Pride celebrations. And then you have a radical Islamist allegedly mowing these people down, obviously because they're gay, because they're trans, because they're not traditional people. And the left are going to be in a right pickle about that because their big focus is the far right. So what do they do with the Islamist crowd, in whose pockets they actually are? Because it's the radical left that have been on the pro-Hamas marches and the pro-Palestine stuff, which is shorthand for anti-Israel, shorthand for Jew hate, and shorthand for deeply ultra-conservative religious ideology, which is what Islamism is. Why are the left, why are they all in with Islamism? It's ultra-conservative. It's it's fascist, isn't it? This is about covering women's heads and faces. Iran, for example, murdered a woman. The official authorities murdered a woman for not wearing a hijab. And I was told by my great colleague, the journalist Chloe Dobbs, yesterday that in Iran, a lot of women have had their eye shot out, one of their eyes, as a punishment for not covering their heads. Silence on the left. All they can worry about is the imaginary far right. So they're going to be in a right pickle because what you've got that's happened in Berlin in the last 24 hours is an Islamist has mowed down a bunch of people because they're gay. And this is a wider story of Christmas markets that are targeted by Islamists. Children's nurseries, parks, bridges, public spaces. Trafalgar Square, which is the great centrepiece of our beautiful capital city. It sits there, Trafalgar Square, Nelson's Column, in front of the National Gallery. It's got the fountain. And I grew up jumping in that fountain as a little boy, wandering into that art gallery as a teenager, trying to understand Van Gogh. Excuse me while I clear my throat. Well, that same amazing centrepiece of our capital city, Trafalgar Square, is now surrounded by concrete barriers. Is that progress? Concrete barriers around Trafalgar Square. Is that progress? Is it? Sorry, guys, am I missing something here? Dean, help me out. Concrete barriers around Trafalgar, permanent, by the way. It's not temporary. It's not like New Year's Eve. We now have concrete, ugly concrete barriers around Trafalgar Square. Is that progress? Or is that civilizational collapse? And why do these radical ideologues go after our city centres? Why do they go after the Christmas markets? Why do they go after gay pride? Why do they go after the nurseries and the parks and the bridges? Because it's the Western way of life that they hate. And here's the thing. This Islamist that the Germans are going after, it won't be a foreigner. It will likely be somebody born in Germany, which is why the establishment press will say a German man has killed a bunch of gay people at Pride. But that won't be true because it's not a German person. It's a radical Islamist. And that is not a German ideology. It's not a German outlook, although ironically it does chime with Germany's history of authoritarian fascism. Ironically, it does. And the radical Islamists are the same as the Nazis. How ironic that that should be visited upon the Germans who have gone very woke and gone very open borders. It's all come a bit full circle. Anyway, it's wild. And before we get to the break, all of this relates to you and me and our beautiful country. Because it's the open borders and it's the mass legal immigration from incompatible cultures that mean we have to have concrete barriers around Trafalgar Square, that we have to have armed cops at the Christmas markets, which is why we're staring down the barrel of civilizational collapse. So let's talk about Andy Burnham into this break. And it's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. He hasn't once mentioned illegal immigration. So at 6:21 in the morning, I need you to help me with this because it all relates to Berlin and gays being mowed down by an Islamist. And it's to do with particularly illegal immigration. Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? What do you think? Does he care? Does Andy Burnham care about Iran using the small boats to get terrorists onto the UK mainland, as reported by The Telegraph, that the progressive left would love to shut down? They'd love to shut down The Telegraph, the Mail. They'd love to shut down Talk. They'd love to shut down GB News. They'd love to shut down any common sense outlets. But we're going to talk about it. Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? One of the world's leading public relations expert live in the studio next.
To be here with you all in the heart of Manchester this Friday morning at the end of, you know, a fairly big week is just everything to me.
If I have to watch one more saccharine video of him pulling a pint or talking about his favourite bar snacks with John Healey, whatever mawkish, minimalising, utterly moronic, stupid bit of social media tidbit they're trying to throw to us, you know, the sugar to help the Marxist medicine go down.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 6:25. With me live in the studio, I'm so delighted to welcome one of the most respected public relations executives in the world, Piers Pottinger. Good morning, Piers.
Morning, Mark.
You've advised celebrities, politicians, administrations. It's great to have you in the studio. A couple of very big stories to get through. First of all, the Sun on Sunday newspaper, hunt for migrant boat killers. This is truly extraordinary, and it's a Sun on Sunday exclusive. Police are hunting migrants believed to have fled to Britain on a boat after stabbing a man to death on a French beach. This follows yesterday's story in The Telegraph that the Iranian regime is using the small boats to get terrorists onto the UK mainland. Meanwhile, in Germany, we have reports of a radical Islamist mowing down 16 people at the Berlin Pride event. One fatality, the others injured, many others minor injuries and trauma. And there's a common theme here, a hateful ideology that we've allowed to enter our society.
Yes, well, it's not just enter our society, it's permeated it. And it is not just tolerated, it is almost encouraged, particularly by people in the Labour Party. They don't seem to understand that the Islamic religion, and it's not a race, it's a religion.
Which is why we're allowed to criticise it.
Exactly. But they don't like criticism because they regard themselves as supreme. One might actually call the religion supremacist.
Which is ironic because that's a label the left use against
the right.
anyone concerned.
Anyone who actually criticises Islam is suddenly a right-wing supremacist. But actually it's the Islamic religion that's supremacist because it doesn't tolerate any other religions. It regards itself as completely above anyone else. It is actually in the religious tenets. It is appalling in its treatment of women. I mean, it seems to me bizarre that you see the likes of Angela Rayner and I can't even bring myself to mention her name, Louise Haigh, the convicted fraudster, but the pair of them absolutely...
Don't be so unkind about Louise, by the way. She sold me an iPhone 11 Pro Plus the other day.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Quite the bargain, yeah. It's yours for 100 quid. She's got a drawer full of them.
Oh, marvellous,
yeah.
marvellous.
But joking apart, I totally understand that these people are obsequious. They have sucked up to the radical Islamist bloc in this country.
Who treat women dreadfully.
Cover their heads,
if you look
lock them at home.
People sometimes forget the Taliban are Islamists. And if you look at the way the Taliban treat women in Afghanistan, it is shocking. It is absolutely outrageous. And we don't do enough of about condemning it.
Can I give you a couple of fresh examples? You now have cops going from door to door. If a woman is listening to music or laughing or evidence that she's reading a book, she'll be arrested.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know...
Let that sink in.
And this is supposed to be a civilised society. I'm sorry, I don't tolerate that. But when we come to the boats coming over and the terrorists using the boats, I mean, what a surprise. It's absolutely ludicrous and has been for a long time that we cannot seem to be able to stop these boats coming. And this is mostly down to where they come from, which is in France. And the French police seem absolutely unable, despite us paying them hundreds of millions of pounds a year, hundreds of millions of pounds of our money goes to these police and buys them better cars, nicer uniforms. But do they stop these people? It can't be that difficult to stop these people.
The political will is not there in Paris.
It isn't. It isn't, and it's not even in the will of the policeman. I mean, you know, there used to be the old joke about what's the difference between toast and a Frenchman? And the answer is you can make soldiers out of toast.
Harsh but fair. And of course it's human nature as well. Why should they be so keen to keep these people on their own shores? They're quite happy to see the back of them.
Absolutely. They don't want them there, and who can blame them? But, I mean, the point is they were illegal immigrants when they got into France. That's OK, apparently, as long as they know they're leaving and coming over here. I mean, this has been going on for so long, and no one can stop it. I mean, our new Prime Minister, who is behaving as if he was a sort of compere in a summer season show, wandering around the country, telling gags, smiling, he forgets. And, of course, he makes all these promises while Parliament is in recess. There's no one holding him to account. He's making these ridiculous promises. I think he's treating the British public like children, quite frankly, because when he said, I'm going to go through that door and issue the instruction that there must be no more rough sleeping, and he expected us to believe that would happen.
And it's gone up in Manchester since he became mayor.
When he was elected mayor, there were 3,011 homeless people. At the end of last year, there were 9,859. I looked it up.
So he's
more than trebled the
quadrupled it. Sorry, trebled it. Yeah.
Because
sorry, I've got the I've been to the Diane Abbott School of Mathematics.
Well, when the homeless circuit heard that there was more benefits and more stuff available for basically beggars, to use a terrible word, but that's what they are. They all descended there to actually benefit from it. So it was like a magnet, increasing the homeless. This is what is called stupidity. And Andy Burnham, like most socialists, have no concept of how actually the world works. They have a fantasy idea of how they'd like it to be.
Right.
They do not understand how anything works because they're all career politicians. They've all done very little in the past.
Wedded to a failed ideology.
Absolutely. And some of the cabinet ministers, well, we've got one convicted fraudster. We've got the housing secretary who was kicked out of the government less than a year ago for failing to pay her tax on her house, and she's back as housing secretary. Apparently there's no problem there. We have a business secretary who was kicked out of the government because he claimed to be a solicitor when he hadn't passed his exams. But that's all forgiven, and he's now back in the government. So we've got all these kind of misfits and hopeless, and in some case convicted criminals in our cabinet supposedly running this country. And the other thing that Mr. Burnham keeps talking about is devolving power around the country. The parts of the country that are most devolved are doing the worst. Scotland and Wales. They have their own governments and they're disastrous. They pay the highest tax. Everything, however you measure it, they're doing the worst.
Health outcomes, education outcomes, homelessness, drug use, it's all through the roof.
Education's gone right down, standards have gone right down. Now we learn that later next week, Mr. Burnham's going to announce he's going to give taxpayers' money, extra amounts to the mayors around the country. Goodness knows where this money is coming from and what they're going to do with it. But most people living in this country will be horrified at the thought of more money being given to their councils.
And more politicians.
And
more bureaucrats.
More growth. More government does not equal a better economy. It's the reverse. Always is.
And I'm disappointed that Kemi and Nigel on the right have been so weak on this one.
They're very quiet.
And so, for example, because you and I both remember the 1980s, and actually I was born in 74, so just as I was beginning to process the world as a little boy, I could see that Britain was not in a good place. And I do remember the Falklands War, and we still hadn't fully recovered economically at that point. 82, it was just by the mid-80s and particularly 87 that we were really booming.
Yes.
Because Mrs Thatcher, it took 10 years to save the country, and what she achieved. But we've watched the decline of the country and seeing it sort of absolutely collapse in every possible sense. And we're going back to that now. Mrs Thatcher centralised power.
Yes.
Because if you remember in the 80s, we had the loony left, the GLC in London,
Absolutely.
and these wacky local authorities. And Mrs Thatcher's reasoning was as follows. Local government is less accountable because fewer people vote in local elections. There are more layers of bureaucracy, more potential corruption, more incompetence.
Yes.
So she brought it all back into central control. It was the right thing to do. Burnham thinks the 70s were better than the 80s. Make it make sense.
It's impossible that this clown thinks that. I mean, he was a child anyway in the 70s, so I can't understand why he's probably thinking it was all rosy because he was a child. But I was born in the 50s, and I can remember the 70s incredibly well. And, of course, I advised Margaret Thatcher, and I know what she did, and I know what she believed.
And did you advise her did you also have her ear before she won the election in 79?
No.
So you advised her in office?
Yeah, I did, but my partner, Tim Bell, did advise her at the time of the 79 election. But what I would say...
Was he the advertising mastermind that came
Yes.
up with Labour isn't working?
Well, yes. He was the chief executive of Saatchi and Saatchi at the time, and that was their legendary advertisement that was so powerful. But the problem is, really, with Burnham, someone should show him a map of this country, and maybe he could realise we're actually geographically an incredibly small place that's rather overcrowded, and it's very small, so it doesn't need a lot of government. It's not like the United States of America with huge distances to travel. I mean, here he is last week. This is a government trying to save money, flying on a private jet from Glasgow to Manchester. For goodness sake, this whole Manchester thing is utterly absurd. I mean, if a group of people sitting in an office make a decision, is it better because the office is in Manchester or Whitehall? Nonsense. And all this is extra cost. And don't forget his success, as he keeps trumpeting this. It's amazing people fall for this. By any measure, he was not a success in Manchester. Manchester has the biggest amount of debt of any council in this country. £1.5 billion of debt. Those wonderful B buses he goes on about. The B buses received £1 billion of British taxpayers' money to start it off. And last year, it lost and was therefore subsidised by the UK taxpayer £157 million in 1 year. So that's 1.1 billion already down the Swanee. And of course, but he calls this a success. I mean, thank God he's not running one of our companies, because, I mean, he'd be losing billions and telling the shareholders, I've made a great success of this. The man is living in cloud cuckoo land. I suspect this honeymoon period of all this seaside comedy will, when Parliament comes back, when reality dawns on the great British public, I think he'll have to call an election, and hopefully the great British public will see sense and ditch this lot once and for all.
Piers Pottinger is one of the most respected public relations executives in the world. He's still with us until 7:15 this morning. We're going to take your calls. Does Andy Burnham care about illegal immigration? Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? 6:38, your call's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:40 Talk Breakfast, front pages, Sun on Sunday, an exclusive, cops on alert, hunt for migrant boat killers, attackers fled across the channel to the UK, a shocking story, police are hunting migrants believed to have fled to Britain on a boat after stabbing a man to death on a French beach. When are we going to wake up to this issue of illegal immigration? Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? Why hasn't he mentioned it once since he became Prime Minister? He's done non-stop social media videos about pork scratchings and about being a DJ and a tour of this preposterous number 10 North. Not a word about the illegals. Anne is in Gwynedd. Good morning, Anne. You're live with Piers Pottinger.
It would be lovely if Burnham showed a little bit of bottle and was quite firm within the next couple of weeks by stop paying the French government, have a change of tactics and pay the French fishermen to stop the boats or they lose the fishing rights in the North Sea. If they managed to do that and a few got into the country, instead of having the Home Office wallers naively saying everybody that comes in, all these young men who are Christians and goodness knows what, have some of the early retired forces personnel to take over the vetting of the illegals when they come into the country. They probably have a lot more common sense.
Anne, I love your thought. I'm going to put that to Piers in just a moment. Can I also offer another suggestion? Because I think that's a great idea about the fishing rights and about not giving the French any more money. I wonder, Anne, do we take a leaf out of the book of Israel? Because after October the 7th, the worst single attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust, Anne, Israel had a leaflet drop across the whole of Gaza and they said to the people, you need to, I believe it was, you need to head south because in 3 or 4 days' time, we are going to blitz the north of Gaza and take out Hamas. They literally warned the population, which, by the way, doesn't sound like a genocide to me. You tell people it's about to happen. They urged people to head south. Do you think that the UK government and the Navy and the military of this country could issue a warning to the criminal gangs and to the French government, which is, in 1 week's time, we will use the Navy and we will turn the boats around, come what may?
I don't think they've got the... I don't think the government's got the bottle to do it.
Would you approve of that?
Sort of, if it was thought through.
What
yes.
don't you like about it?
Well, when was the last time you saw a policeman or anybody doing anything that they used to do? I can't remember the last time I saw a policeman.
So you're thinking, you know, use the Navy. What Navy is your argument?
Well, yes. I mean, we haven't got enough, and nobody ever talks about the land mass of Britain compared to the land mass of France and Europe. You know, how many more people are we going to squash into this country?
And you're so right. Stay on the line. Piers Pottinger.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point on doing some negotiations over the fishing rights, although unfortunately we've signed them away to the EU. There's not much we can do, but I think Anne is absolutely right about, has Andy Burnham got the bottle to actually stand up and do something about it? I mean, he sounds tough when he turns round and says, we're going to stop the rough sleeping immediately, although, of course, nothing since then has happened and is unlikely to for months, if at all. But again, where on the important issues, people care in this country about these immigrants coming in and causing such havoc and cost and misery to the rest of the British people. And he ought to stand up and do something about it. Shabana Mahmood appears to be slightly tougher. But don't forget, we've got this ridiculous one-in, one-out system still going on, which for some, I don't understand why it was even considered as a good idea. What on earth is the point of that? It is completely and utterly pointless.
Isn't it interesting how reasoned Anne is?
Yes.
And we don't have Anne's thinking at the top of government, do we?
No, of course not, because we don't have people with common sense like Anne has, and someone who's prepared to take the steps that are needed. And Anne obviously is a woman of experience who's actually lived a life where she's actually in touch with reality, which is a damn sight more than this shower in government at the moment. And don't forget, it's not actually even... He's trying to persuade us this is all new. It's the same people. He's just shuffled the pack. And they're all deadbeats. And, you know, Ed Miliband, a lunatic when he was in energy, his number two, who's even more of a zealot, is now taken over, which is really worrying. Trump has made it clear he loathes Miliband. Miliband has made it clear he's furious he's not Chancellor.
Correct.
So when Parliament starts again, this whole edifice, this whole facade, the curtain will come down on the seaside show that we're having in the summer from Burnham. The comedy will stop, and the hard reality and tragi-comedy will start.
Oh, so well put. Anne, your final thoughts before I get to Barry?
I just think we look like fools. Well, the government look like fools. I'm sorry.
They are fools. You're right, Anne. Yes.
You know, they want to be nice, but when you run a business, you don't have to be... You can be sensible, but you don't have to be nice, do you?
Correct.
Another word for that is woke. Anne, you are a hero. Please call me again soon. Loved your input this morning. Before I get to Barry, I know it's fantasy politics, but my point about Israel, that they have clear political, strategic and military objectives.
They're tough.
And they're tough, and they take no nonsense.
Yeah.
And they said to Trump, we're going into Iran whether you join us or not. And they said to the world, we're taking out Hamas whether you care or not. And they warned the people of Gaza that you've got 3 or 4 days to head south because we're going to blitz the north. I think it was the north. Do you not think that in an ideal world we could do that with the channel and say, on this date, in a week's time or 2 weeks' time, the Navy will turn the boats around come what may?
Of course we could. I mean, we're talking about the past as well. I mean, in the 50s and 60s, Britain was seen as a tough power around the world. No one actually would dare behave like people do now. We're now a soft touch. We're just a laughing stock. Our army is a third of the size of the Turkish army, which, I mean, if I'd said that in 1960, people would have said that'll never happen. I mean, Britain has lost its way completely, and the idea that we go back to the 70s with 3-day weeks where you couldn't even bury your dead because the grave diggers were on strike. There were blackouts. There was 3-day weeks. It was utter misery.
It was a miserable
unions
time.
were holding the whole country to account.
I was going to use the word misery.
Total misery, and the country was nearly bankrupt. And we're back. And Burnham, for some inexplicable reason, wants to return to that.
Just briefly, because we've got a break, then we've got Barry in Norwich, and he's got a very interesting point to make. Just finally, on this idea of, you know, looking at how bold Israel have been to protect their existence.
Yes.
You would need to warn the criminal gangs and the French government. You couldn't just unilaterally do it the next day. But if you set a date, and maybe it was a week or 2 weeks in advance, and you said, this is the date in which the Navy will be deployed, we'll turn those boats around. The reason you have to do that is because if you turn the boats around, people may die. So that's why I think you've got to issue the warning.
Yes, no, you're fair.
The issue we've got, though, Piers, unless you're willing to turn those boats around, I'm not sure you ever stop it. And unless you're willing to have that consequence that people may perish, then that's what a war looks like.
Yeah, I mean, these gangsters who are doing this are doing it for profit. Remember that.
And they don't care about the people in the boats,
They
do
don't give and they regard some of their deaths as collateral. It's part of the risk of doing business. They don't give a damn about people. They just want the money. And we should be stopping that and doing it very firmly. And if we say we're going to do it, and then we must do it.
And could you countenance the Navy turning these boats around? These are improvised.
Yes, if we can find some naval boats.
These are weak vessels. These are inflatable dinghies.
These are not difficult to stop. This is the whole point. They shouldn't even be as near to the British coastal waters as they've become, because they should be stopped in situ on the French territory. But the French won't do it, and we're paying them all this money. It's a ludicrous situation.
Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? Barry in Norwich thinks he's got the answer. That's next, 6:50 Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast 6:52, live in the studio. Piers Pottinger, one of the most respected public relations experts in the world. And Barry's in Norwich. Barry, our question this morning is a simple one. Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? What do you think?
No, it won't. And the problem is they don't want to do it, these governments, the previous government. And it all started off with Blair back in 1998 with the human rights being written into law, and then the borders being opened up in 2004. And it's just carried on from there. And the boats won't be stopped because the French don't want them. The French ain't going to stop them getting in the boats and crossing the channel because they don't want them in their country. And when they get over here, they get benefits, which we have to pay for. And it's a multi-billion-pound industry. You've got companies like Serco going around buying up properties, putting in HMOs. There is a street not very far from where I live, and half the houses on that street are HMOs, right? Yeah, half.
Which, Barry, can I say something controversial? I think the HMOs, right, these are houses in communities, on a street near you, 99 Acacia Avenue, and it's a house full of migrants, illegals, I should stress. I think they're probably even worse than the migrant hotels.
Yeah, and I think what they should do is they should put what we have left of the Navy in the channel and say, right, and don't give them 2 weeks to say we're going to do this and do that. Just get out there and do it, because they just come across in hundreds and hundreds, in boats and boats and boats. If you say in 2 weeks we're going to do this, we're going to do that, don't give them notice. Just put the Navy out in the channel and say, look, if you come across this channel illegally, you won't get to the other end, and just send them back to France.
Barry, I hear you. If you turn the boats around, which I believe is ultimately the only solution, or at least it's the final lever that you can pull, what happens if those boats, those little improvised vessels, sink?
Look, they're not little improvised vessels. We had one with 167 come across the other day. They are choosing to get in a boat, right? And you know what? When a lot of them get into this country, you saw it in Germany not so long back, last night. They come over here, they abuse kids, they rape kids, they commit crime, they do all sorts of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
And of course, not all of them, Barry, but even if it's one, it's too many.
Look, they are committing a crime by coming in the country illegally, right, with no paperwork, nothing. We need to detain and deport them, but we need a government and a prime minister who's going to do it. Yeah, right? Not worry about that EHCR, or whatever it's called, do you know what I mean? Or any other stuff like that.
Human Rights Act, Refugee Convention.
You've got all these charities like Care for Calais that hand them mobile phones, give them clothes, they get put in a bus, taken, do you know what I mean? They ain't going to sink in the channel anyway, because the French escort them to the line, and then the Royal National Lifeboat Institution pick them up and bring them here anyway.
Barry, Piers loves you, and he's nodding his head. Piers Pottinger, over to you.
Barry, the other thing that would really put off the immigrants is if we, instead of putting them in hotels or houses, we put them in labour camps and made them do hard labour. Because nothing will put these people off more than the thought of them having to work when they came over here and do work they wouldn't particularly enjoy. Hard labour would be the immediate thing they would find themselves doing. That would, I think, put off an enormous number of them, because they're all coming here, as you quite rightly say, to take our money, to wallow in benefits. The last thing on their minds is doing anything worthwhile.
And here's the thing. Go on, pick that up, Barry. Go for it.
Yeah, I was like, you were talking about the 60s and the 70s earlier on. I mean, I was born in 1970, so I was a child of Margaret Thatcher. I can guarantee you this. If Margaret Thatcher was here in number 10 Downing Street, there's no way on the planet would them boats even reach the shore of this country.
Well, it's very interesting, Baz, because you were around 9 or 10 when Mrs Thatcher became Prime Minister, and you were around 19 or 20 years of age when she left office. Can you, for my younger viewers and listeners, give us a sense of what she did for the country in that 10-year period?
Well, apart from stealing my milk at school, she's done a lot.
Have you got bad teeth as a result? Have you got Barry? Have you got weak bones?
You see it in the country now. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? She privatised. People are allowed to make profit. People are allowed to buy their own council houses. People, the whole country changed 360 degrees from 1979 to 1990. Yeah, but she was a leader. She wasn't there to make friends. Yeah, right. She didn't care about whether things were going to hurt your feelings. You said what she's going to do. You either liked it or you lumped it. No.
Well, I think you. Into this developing story. For some reason, Piers, whenever you're on, there's breaking news. You're a very consequential man. But we've got this Islamist on the run in Berlin. When is the West going to wake up? You know, the things that are targeted, children's nurseries, parks, bridges, Christmas markets, gay pride celebrations.
But the thing that really shocked me reading it this morning, the reports coming in, the Berlin police say that they know who this person is, and he was known to them. It's a wonderful phrase. When the police say he was known to us, the follow-up question is, well, why on earth was he at large and able to do this? I mean, if he's on your radar, he has to be more than on your radar.
Well, I can tell you why. Political correctness and community cohesion. Keeping the local clerics happy.
Yeah. I suppose,
would you say? Or have I gone too far?
No, I think whatever. I can't speak for Berlin. I was there only recently and I thought it was a marvellous city and fascinating place. And I feel for all the people in Berlin what's happened today.
Piers Pottinger stays with us. Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? Talk breakfast.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
2 minutes past 7, top of the morning. Happy Sunday, one and all. Mark Dolan with you on Talk Breakfast. A big show this morning. And breaking news as we come on air. German police are conducting a manhunt as they search for a radical Islamist who mowed down scores of people with a van at Berlin's annual Gay Pride March. We'll bring you more as we get it. But it begs a simple question this morning. When will the West wake up to the threat of radical Islam? Because these people go after our Western traditions, don't they? The Christmas markets, Gay Pride celebrations, parks, bridges, public areas. When is the West going to wake up to the threat of radical Islam? Meanwhile, a shocking front page exclusive from The Sun on Sunday. Hunt for migrant boat killers. What about this, folks? Police are hunting migrants believed to have fled to Britain on a boat after stabbing a man to death on a French beach. They commit an alleged murder in France and they jump in a boat and they head in our direction. If that's not an example of a broken system, I don't know what is. And we've heard so much from Andy Burnham this week, haven't we? About saving the pubs with a pathetic £1,000 a year. Good luck with that. About saving us 45 quid a year on our electricity bills. Well, don't spend it all at once. We heard about tackling homelessness, which my brilliant guest Piers Pottinger pointed out has tripled on his watch as Manchester Mayor. We've heard so much from Andy Burnham, a social media video about how he likes pork scratchings. But has he mentioned illegal immigration once? The reason why it matters is because it's an economic, societal and national security crisis. With The Telegraph reporting yesterday that the Iranian regime, Iran, are using small boats to get terrorists into Britain. And now The Sun reporting that an alleged murderer is on his way to the UK on a boat and will likely stay here for the rest of his life. So we've heard so much from Burnham, but he's not mentioned illegal immigration. So our big question this morning is a simple one. Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? 0344 499 1000, text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, as the saying goes, let's talk. And let's do so in the company of retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville and one of the world's most respected public relations executives, Piers Pottinger. Gentlemen, welcome to Talk Breakfast. Mike Neville, if I could start with you, your reaction to this breaking news that a suspected Islamist has mowed down 16 people at Berlin's Gay Pride celebrations.
Well, the sad thing is, Mark, I'm not surprised. It's a disgusting crime, and people are entitled to have their celebration and enjoy themselves in total safety. And this has not happened again. Piers asked just before the break, why didn't the police do anything about this when they knew his name? Well, the reason probably is there's about 40,000, if not more, names on a list in Britain, and there's simply not enough security services and police officers to watch all these people for the time that they need to be watched for. And it's absolutely disgusting. It's been allowed to happen in this country by and all over the West. You know, I went to help the German police after the sex attacks in Cologne 2015, and the reaction there rather than dealing with the crimes, was to cover it up. For 3 days, they attempted to cover it up because it exposed that mass immigration of people who don't share our values will create dangers and offences against the local population. And this is a Western elite who decided that we're having a multicultural society, whether we can like it or lump it, and whatever wicked things come with it, like the other story you mentioned about France. It is just so bad, Mark. They've allowed this to happen and they've put people at risk.
And whether it's Berlin Gay Pride or the Manchester Arena attacks or any of the other examples of Islamist terror attacks on the West, the progressive left, Mike, I think they see this as the price you pay for a diverse society.
Yeah, absolutely. They're prepared to go with it completely. They don't mind. They just allow it to happen. You're saying, why hasn't the Prime Minister mentioned the boats? You know, I'm commenting in The Sun on that story you mentioned there, that it's not one killer, it's several people involved in that who have entered this nation. So which HMO are they going to be living in next week? Which part of Wigan or Felixstowe or Arbroath or Cardiff are they going to be? We just simply do not know. The Western elites decided this after the war, I think, that there would be no more nation states that would just allow people in. And this is where we've ended up. It's absolutely tragic to see a nation in such a state where people just will be in fear. Well,
let me read you. This is you quoted in the Sun on Sunday newspaper this morning, Mike. It says, retired Met Police Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville last night said this case demonstrates how the small boats crisis has become a big crime problem. The authorities simply do not know who is entering Britain. Mike Neville goes on, the police are already overwhelmed and cannot deal with the current levels of crime. Their time should be spent trying to catch our own murderers without adding the job of additional having to pursue killers who have committed brutal crimes in France. You're so right, Mike. Are we not, Piers Morgan? We are literally importing, Piers Pottinger, more criminals into the UK.
Yes, we are. But we've also got quite a few of them here ourselves. We've already had some horrific Islamist terrorist attacks in this country. We know that they exist, and also quite often they emanate from people being radicalised through mosques in this country, and also radical Muslim groups like the Muslim Brotherhood, which should be proscribed. The Muslim Brotherhood is banned in Egypt, for goodness sake, but it's because they find it too extreme in a Muslim country. Yet here they're allowed free reign. And the Muslim groups in this country are very, very slow to condemn when these kind of attacks. We hear very little from them, if at all, but they're very quick to start complaining if anything happens to anyone in their communities. It is very much a one-way traffic and is very dangerous. And and the other very simple point is, why is it that you never see Muslims seeking asylum in Muslim countries? I mean, this, don't forget, and it is easy to forget, is a Christian country. It still technically is that. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves of this.
And Michael, Germany is an example of the failure of open borders, of pathological empathy to poor people from incompatible cultures flooding into your successful Western country. And of course, it's just a warning, is it not, about open borders?
It absolutely is a warning, Mark, and you see it in places like Sweden, which was like the ultra-liberal, nice little country, which has now got a campaign of bombings and shootings. You see it in Belgium, you see it in parts of France. It's absolutely dreadful. And I do agree with Piers. You know, we don't hear much from Muslim leaders when these things happen. And I'd compare it with, if you look at the wicked murder of Henry Novak, which was committed by a Sikh. The Sikh community were on that straight away, saying the disgusting nature of the attack, how ashamed they were. And there's a real difference. And when you see these child molesters released from prison who've been part of these grooming gangs, they're seemingly just allowed back in Why would you do that? Why would you allow somebody back in? If somebody was, I'm a Christian, if somebody's Christian and they committed a crime, well, I don't care what religion you are. You're a wicked individual, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Sikh, Jewish. If you've committed crimes, I condemn you. And the fact that you're the same religion as me is of no consequence whatsoever. And we need to hear that from the Muslim community as well.
We most definitely do. And it's interesting because these Islamists in Germany and across the West, they target a lot of our traditional things, such as Christmas markets or gay pride.
It's just truly shocking. It just shows we're told that all cultures have equal value. It's not the same. All cultures are not the same. They don't respect the same things. We have gay pride parades. You know, get over it. If you don't want to go, don't go. But don't go driving vehicles into it or stabbing people. And it's like this victim scenario. Douglas Murray is very good on this. He was talking about the 3 gay men who were stabbed in Reading, if you remember, in the Reading Park by a Muslim. And it seems like the Muslim score of victimhood is 4 because that wasn't true. The fact it's 3 men dead, that 3 points, that didn't score anything. You know, it just, we have a strange society here where there's this scale of victimhood, and it's just, we should all be treated the same and we should all respect each other.
I agree. Piers Pottinger, the issue we've got, in my view, is that the progressive left have infiltrated our public institutions and our media.
Oh, yes.
Without having to win an election, they have prevailed, in a sense, because
yes.
even under a Conservative government, we've had the open borders, and we've also had the progressive left all in with Islam.
Well, you see,
as a religion.
You've fallen into the trap yourself, Mark. You called it the progressive left. There's nothing progressive, it's regressive. They want to go back to the 70s.
Yeah.
And don't forget that the other thing, which is so true of what you've just said, the key thing was when Tony Blair changed the civil service code, which meant that civil servants no longer were beholden to the ministers and the Secretary of State. The way they worked was changed, which actually very, very surreptitiously politicised the civil service, which meant no longer were they neutral and had to remain absolutely fundamentally neutral and be impartial. They were now free to pursue their own idiotic left-wing ideas. A lot of what's going wrong in the country at the moment, it's not actually done by the ministers because they don't really run their departments anymore. They're run by these left-wing, mostly unionised people. The first thing Ed Miliband walked into was the Foreign Office on strike. Very little coverage of this, by the way.
Very true.
It was day 1 of his new appointment, and all his staff are on strike, and it's a Labour government. How absurd is that?
If you're watching on YouTube, we have pictures from Berlin in Germany and this van, which has now been covered off by police tape. And Mike, we spoke earlier in the show about, in Germany, gay pride, somebody mows down the crowd, the Christmas markets, children's nurseries, parks, pop events. May God forbid, but I suspect inevitably some sort of sporting event will be targeted. This is what civilizational collapse looks like, isn't it?
It surely is, yes, and we've allowed, as I say, allowed it to happen. Western leaders, look at Angela Merkel, who let all the immigrants in there in Germany. We can make it work. Well, obviously you can't make it work because it's not working at all. There's been so many attacks in Germany, and as you say, one of the particular things, the targeted, and not just, it's not everybody really. You do have the Christmas markets because that's a lot of people, but then you get the gay pride marches and you get things involving young girls, like the concert in Manchester. You look at the brutal murders by Axel Ruder Cabana, who's now seen an imam, of course, after we were told that he was a Cardiff choir boy. The girls, again, targeted. It's too often women, girls and gay people who are targeted by these Islamist terrorists.
Most definitely. Well, we've got lots more to come. It is 7:16. You're listening to Talk Breakfast. Don't forget that the Australian Nigel Farage, Pauline Hanson, is on the show this morning. It's the interview they all wanted. She has described the United Kingdom as a sad, sorry island. Pauline Hanson, from, of course, the One Nation Party in Australia, live at 8:30. But still with me for the next 15 minutes, Piers Pottinger and Mike Neville. And is Andy Burnham planning a snap election? That's next.
Jamila Jamil, who has made her career out of calling people out on literally anything with the faintest whiff of controversy, only to find herself in controversy time and time again, whether it's feuds with celebrities, social media rows, accusations. She even disowned her entire family, claiming that they are fat-phobic. Well, if your worldview boils down to 70 million people being villains because of where they are born, that is not courageous. It's actually very lazy and entitled.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. With me live in the studio, Piers Pottinger, one of the most respected public relations executives in the world, and the brilliant retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Gentlemen, brilliant to have your company. Piers, is it possible that Andy Burnham will call a snap general election this year?
Well, they're dangerous things to call, as many have discovered. And many have also discovered they're dangerous not to call. They miss opportunities. Gordon Brown famously missed a chance.
Callaghan.
But what I think is happening, we're having all this summer comedy and populist rubbish that he's trying to con the British public into believing he's doing wonderful things, most of which is far off in the future, by the way. The pubs aren't getting any relief until April next year. In the meantime, they're still suffering.
And it's the princely sum of a grand a year. They need a grand a day.
Of course, they need much more. And the energy bill saving they're talking about will be wiped out with what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz, something Mr. Burnham might try and pay some attention to instead of his pork scratchings. But I think what he'll do is he'll have this wave of popularity, which he has succeeded in. The polls are showing that people are buying into the happiness mode, partly because it's the summer, and that some of them are on holiday, and also because he's not Keir Starmer, and he's certainly a more upbeat clown than Starmer was. Now, the problem is, though, once Parliament comes back, reality comes in. He is starting to be questioned by Kemi Badenoch, who's pretty good at this now. She's really getting much better, in my opinion. And we're going to see a different Burnham, whether he likes it or not. He can run away to Manchester once a week, but he can't miss PMQs, Prime Minister's Question Time, because he's actually obliged to turn up and answer questions. But I believe when his conference comes, he will be hoping this wave of popularity will last until the Labour Party conference in the end of September, where I believe at the end of it he will announce during the conference his 10-year plan. Of course, he won't announce it in Parliament because he gets questioned too quickly. He'll announce it at the Labour conference, and then at the end of it he'll say, and because I want this mandate for my 10-year plan, I'm calling an election. And he will hope to win on that basis.
Michael, may God forbid a snap election in November, but two factors at play pointed out. The first one by Piers Pottinger, that Burnham will have a Burnham bounce, the honeymoon period, and also he may calculate that November is a little soon for Reform to get their ducks in a row. What do you think about a November election?
Well, I hope there is an election so we can give our, our thoughts on this. And I'm sure that Reform will get some. I'm sure there's some very good Northern candidates for Reform. But
do you not think November is a bit soon for Nigel's army?
I think they're going to get in a grip of things, really. The organisation's going to be there, and it will have to, whatever party goes for it will have their candidates ready. I think what will be sussed out, though, my big deal with Andy Burnham is the fakeness of it all. This fake Northern bloke, the fake ordinary bloke. He's nothing like that. This is a man who's got an English degree from Cambridge, and has also has never had a proper job. Has just been involved in politics. Every bad thing that Labour's been involved in for 2 decades, he's been there with them. He's never really worked properly. And all this, I'll go down the pub and have some pork scratchings. It's a load of old nonsense. And that's going to be sussed out, I think, before
he's finished.
Well, I think that's very interesting. Now, Piers, you were shaking your head there in regard to what Mike said, that you think actually that a November election may be a little soon for Reform.
Definitely, I'm afraid, because we're going to see the Parliamentary Standards report at least. Hopefully, it's stopped at the moment because Nigel Farage isn't technically an MP anymore. But if he was to win in Clacton, then they'd have to start the process again. And around November or in October, they will report, and I don't think it's going to go well for him. On top of that, the police are investigating donations to Reform, and around October time, I think Reform are going to be suffering a real backlash in terms of the polls. I think they'll be suffering a great deal because although they've done extraordinarily well, without Farage, they really are not much of a force. And I fear that this will be seen by the Labour Party as a great opportunity to take that opportunity while Reform are so weak and the Conservatives still unelectable.
Well, going back to November 2026, Mike, what about that? Burnham at his strongest, Nigel at his weakest.
Well, I think that the people will speak. I think many of the things that Piers has mentioned, like the money and the like, I think the Reform voters I speak to, ordinary people I speak to, they just don't care about these things. I think often these are a Westminster bubble affair. I think Burnham has some traction because of this Great Northern Act up in the Manchester area and the like. But I think that bubble will burst as soon as people suss out this is all nonsense. As soon as they suss out, the £2 bus fare and the 45 quid off the heating bill is going nowhere. I think this honeymoon period he will have will quickly die. And I think all politicians have their troubles. But I just hope for the country that we just need to clear out the Augean stables, in the sense that we've had a mess of 100 years of Labour and Tories going round and round in circles with a little bit of input from the Liberal Democrats, and nothing has changed. I just think whatever party it is, we need new people in Parliament to change it round, not more of the same old, because you keep doing the same thing, of course, and hoping for a different result. As Einstein said, that's the definition of madness.
Of course, the other thing to consider, Piers, is that it's our understanding Andy Burnham is a proponent of proportional representation.
Yes.
Now, surely that could be a factor at the next election, because if he calls a snap election in November and it's a hung parliament, he could broker a deal with the smaller parties and say, I'll give you PR if you can put me in number 10.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, he's got I mean, the reason the useless Lib Dems and the dreadful Ed Davey, a man who is still not apologised for putting those sub-postmasters in prison, something that he is, in my view, I mean, it's outrageous he's even in Parliament. But, however, the Lib Dems...
He ignored their concerns when he was the relevant minister.
He was the minister for the Post Office.
Yeah.
He signed off on all the prosecutions. And who was his boss? The business secretary, another Lib Dem.
Vince Cable.
Yeah, Vince Cable. Pair of shockers. Anyway, the Lib Dems, of course, being completely useless and can't make their minds up about anything, their solution to anything is resign. That's all you can say is resign. He should resign. But the point is they have been nice to the Labour Party all through the last Starmer's reign because he's trying to cosy up to them so that they might get in another coalition government. That's what he's hoping for. The Greens will do, I'm sure, a deal with Labour, and they'll all gang together to keep the right out. That is why, again, I suspect when it comes to the crunch, the Conservatives and Reform will end up doing a deal.
Well, Mike, the worry I've got about proportional representation is that what that potentially means in the long term is left-wing administrations for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely, it will.
Michael?
I agree with Piers there, because what you're going to get is some awful deals with the SNP and Plaid Cymru, Sinn Féin, and I fear it could end up with the breakup of the country if we allow a left-wing.
Yeah.
Because that will be, we'll get the eternal PR votes, and as you say, that'll appeal to the left, and we'll end up with a dreadful coalition which will wreck the United Kingdom.
You are quite right about that. Well, look, it's a fascinating conversation. Michael, if there is an election in November, and I do trust the judgment of Piers Pottinger, who has advised politicians and administrations over many years, if there were an election in November, how do you see it playing out, Michael?
Well, as we've already discussed, the dreadful left coalition, that could be the winner. And whilst the right headbutt each other, somehow Nigel Farage, Rupert Lowe have got to get in a room and say, look, things were done that were wrong, you're out of order, whatever else, but for the good of the country, we have to come together.
Mike, million-dollar question. Does that deal happen before or after the election? My worry is if it happens after the election, it could be too late.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, and they've got to get together with Kemi Badenoch and carve it up in some way, just like Churchill and Stalin sat in a room and carved up Europe after the Second World War. They've got to say, right, Rupert Lowe, you're very good in East Anglia or whatever else, but you're right, don't do it afterwards, because afterwards too late. They've got to give the country a centre-right alternative.
But Mike,
a left-wing coalition of chaos, because they never sleep, Mark. They never sleep. The left never sleep. They're determined to destroy the country.
Michael,
we have to wake up.
If you issue a line in merchandise, the left never sleep mugs, the left never sleep T-shirts, the left never sleep baseball caps, you will make millions. It's your catchphrase. Trademark Mike Neville Industries Limited. Michael, it's very, very rare of you to contradict yourself. And I hear your point about the right uniting, but you've also always said, Michael, that what we've got to do is have a complete clear out of the establishment. And that includes not just Labour and the Lib Dems, but the Tories as well. Why are you buckling under the pressure?
I'm not buckling here, because I see that Kemi Badenoch is stopping some of these awful centrist characters from standing
like Grant Shapps.
Yeah, that's right. So there is some movement here of clearing them out. As I say, the Augean stables, all that filth needs to be cleared out. Drain the swamp, as President Trump says. So I think I'm not contradicting myself, because obviously they're listening to us, Mark. They're listening to us.
Oh, I think that's a fair point.
But
Piers,
the real problem is some of the people who've been cleared out of the Conservatives have ended up in Reform, like Suella Braverman, Robert Jenrick,
Nadeem Zahawi,
who we haven't heard a word from since he's moved there. He seems to have disappeared into the stratosphere. I'm afraid I thought that was a bad move by Nigel Farage to take on a bunch of ex-Tories, because his whole premise is we're different, we're not the old gang, yet here they all are. cozying up to him because they think they've got a better chance of getting a job than they would have if they stuck with Kemi.
Will a snap election in November focus minds and do the right, at that point, do a deal? Because I'm going to speculate on behalf of my amazing audience, and based upon all the calls, the voice notes and the text messages that you've sent me over the last few months, I would say the majority of you, if it's an existential threat to this country and left-wing administrations forever, which is open borders, net zero and bankruptcy, I think most of you take the view that you'd rather the right did a deal.
Yeah.
But how likely is that to happen? Because you know the people involved. Farage, big personality, big ego. Kemi,
ditto, with
big personality, big ego.
Big personality, big ego.
Rupert Lowe, big personality, big ego.
Yeah, I think Rupert Lowe is a minor character in this. I'm sorry, I don't put him in the same league.
Well, is he worth 5% in quite a few constituencies there?
Yeah, maybe, but I think he's. Rupert Lowe also, don't forget, wanted Tommy Robinson in his party. Not so sure about that.
I think at a general election as well. And I think at a general election, the smaller parties fall away.
Yes, but I'm much more concerned about Kemi because she is doing much better in the House of Parliament. Unfortunately, that's not translating across the country because she doesn't have a credible team around her. And she's not a great one for listening to people. She's quite difficult to work with. She is not the most punctual of people either. All these things irritate people and irritate people around her.
I know lots of figures on the right. They do not like her.
I'm afraid that's true. And she hasn't got a really good group around her. There's also, where are the elder statesmen? Where are the figures of wisdom? And she said earlier on, when she became leader, she was going to bring in the great minds to think about her policies. And where are they? Why not bring in some of our great business figures?
She needs a Keith Joseph, doesn't she?
She does. I mean, what's wrong with James Dyson? He's done rather well.
Well, James Dyson, I was reading about him last night, the inventor of the Dyson vacuum cleaner. And his company, he owns 100% of the shares of that company.
Yep.
And quite recently, would you like to know how much he was offered for the company?
I don't know.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
$80 billion.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure.
And he said, no, it's family firm.
But he has lots of other interests as well.
But we're not bringing this guy in because why?
He's revolutionising farming.
But he was an evil Brexiteer, so we don't want to hear from him.
He offered to pay for an Oxford college on engineering, and they turned him down. He was a client of mine. I am biased. I think he's a tremendous man.
He's a genius.
And I do think that people like him, these really great British success stories, the Conservatives should be embracing them. We did that with Margaret Thatcher deliberately. She embraced the leading business figures of the time, encouraged them, listened to them. She had lunch with them regularly to hear what their concerns were, what they needed, and also what she could tell them they needed to do better.
Michael, before I let both you and Piers go, and what a conversation it's been this morning, going back to Berlin, where we have the breaking news that 16 people at a gay pride march have been mown down, with one fatality so far, the others injured quite seriously, some of them. This is about an alien ideology that hates our values. Michael, will the West ever wake up?
Not until there's a massive change at the top of the establishment, because those in charge at the moment, the elites who are in charge of all these different things, they believe that this is the multicultural society is the future. They refuse to condemn it, and they refuse to do anything about it. I was just saying, you can see Andy Burnham's priorities, because as you've noted, it's not been mentioned. Why wouldn't he mention the small boats, the massive boats actually, that are bringing 160 people a day in or whatever? If he was concerned about it, he would mention it. But to them, these are people fleeing war and all this sort of nonsense, and they're simply putting up with it because also the other cynical factor, Mark, is there's a lot of votes for the left from Muslim communities, and that's a really wicked thing that they're going along with that for votes. It's truly terrible.
Michael, words of wisdom as always. Brilliant to see you. Thank you for joining us. Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, and of course also a man that served in our military as well in Northern Ireland. What a hero. Speaking of which, my thanks to Piers Pottinger, one of the most respected public relations executives in the world, political commentator as well. Please come back soon.
I would love to.
And bring the breaking news with you, as you always do. Never a slow news day when Pottinger's about. Lots more to come. Will Andy Burnham ever stop the boats? Your calls and a BBC radio legend live in the studio next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And I've got to tell you that we've got so many calls coming in on our big subject of the day. If you're just joining us, 16 people mown down by an Islamist in Berlin. It's a shocking story. The Gay Pride, annual Gay Pride March. Another attack by somebody with an alien attitude to Western cultural values. When is the West going to wake up? Alan is in Yorkshire. Good morning, Alan.
Yeah, good day there, Mark. What I want to say is I'm terrified. I'm terrified of what's going to... I mean, I'm 80 years old. I'm not terrified for me. I'm terrified for my grandsons. I'm terrified for the future of this country because Burnham is such a narcissist. He just loves watching himself on the telly. He just loves being popular. He just loves the adoration of everything. What we need is what Mr. Pottinger and Mr. Neville have been talking about. We need some policies. We don't need factious popularism by a bloke who hasn't got a clue what he's going to do. He really hasn't got a clue. And may I make one other point? Because, please, we need our brothers and sisters that are Muslims. I'm not a Muslim, but our brothers and sisters that are Muslims, good Muslims, need to speak out and say, we're not Islamists, we're Muslims. That's like Baptists, that's like Catholics. It's like, you know, we're not Islamists. And I think an awful lot of people, and I'm not being arrogant here in any way, shape or form, but I think a lot of less educated people think that Islamists and Muslims are one of the same, and they're not. I've got lots and lots of good Muslim friends, and my wife's being cared for by a team which includes some Muslim people, and they're fabulous. You know, good Muslim people are fabulous, but they need to make more recognition of them in public. We need some good Muslims to stand up and say, we're not Islamists. And that doesn't seem to be happening, and I'm not quite sure why it's not happening.
I know, and it's always been a problem, Alan. Live in the studio, BBC radio legend Alex Dyke. Lovely to see you, Alex. And Alan in North Yorkshire's got a point that so-called moderate Muslims need to do more to call out this wicked ideology within their own realm.
Yes. Morning, Mark. They do. They need it. It would really help the Muslim communities in the UK if they would distance themselves from these Islamic terrorists. But for some reason, I don't know if it's out of respect, they don't do that. Why you would respect these people, I don't know. And what's happened in Germany with Abdul B, the suspect's name, is nothing new now. we've had these attacks in Nice in July 2016. That was an Islamic terrorist attack that killed 86 people. Then there was one in Berlin in a Christmas market in December 2016. We had the one at Westminster Bridge in 2017. They've been in Stockholm. There was the London Bridge one, of course, 3 men getting out of 3 different vehicles and attacking people with knives. They go on. Finsbury Park. We've had them in Barcelona. A lot of them in Germany. And now it's just become, oh, it's another one. We aren't as shocked as we were because we're getting more and more and more of these. And you were talking about Trafalgar Square this morning and the barriers around Trafalgar Square as I was driving around Trafalgar Square.
Is that a fact?
Yeah.
Just for those that didn't hear, I was there the other day, and this is the centrepiece of our capital city, Nelson's Column. It's the focal point of the whole city, really. Yeah. You've got the National Gallery, and of course it's at one end of the Mall, which leads to Buckingham Palace. So it is at the very heart of our capital city. And it has these very, very ugly concrete barriers all the way around. And my question to my viewers and listeners was, is this progress? Because I don't think it's progress.
It's not progress. And the other thing I think you touched on, Mark, is they're not temporary. These things are put in streets in major cities, big concrete blocks in shopping centres, and we go past them and we think, well, they're not going to be there forever. They are not decorated in an attractive way. They're just big concrete blocks, and we think they're not going to be there forever. But you've probably, if you're in a major city or a big town, been walking past the same concrete blocks for 10 years now.
Most definitely. Alan, final thoughts before I get to Martin.
Everything Martin said there made sense. And the only other thing I want to say is that the people need to stop watching the BBC because they're being indoctrinated. The education system in this country for years has been dominated by the left. Indoctrination. And kids believe because we're told the BBC is a wonderful one. Once upon a time it was. Once upon a time when Elvis Bardadeo and people like that were broadcasting, they reported the news. And the BBC should report the news, not their opinions. That's how I feel anyway.
Well, listen, brilliant call. And Alan, thank you for your wise words. Do call me again soon. You're 80 years of age and you love your country and you're concerned about the next generation. And I'm the same. I've got skin in the game because I have children. So it's not about me. It's about them. And it's about this amazing country that I am watching in real time going down the toilet. And it's not just us. It's France, it's Spain, and in the last 24 hours, it's Germany. Gay pride, right? People with a different lifestyle decided that they're going to be gay or they're going to be trans or whatever. Just, you know, a freedom to live your life the way you wish. And you've got these hateful people in Germany that get into a van and mow those folks down because they represent a wicked ideology that we've imported into the West, that the Arab states take more seriously than we do. Big Martin is in Nottingham. Good morning, Martin. You're live with BBC Radio legend Alex Dyke.
Hello there. Yeah, on that last note, do you think the Queers for Palestine people will ever actually wake up that it's literally turkeys for Christmas?
They've been very quiet, the old Queers for Palestine, innit?
Yeah, but what I've really phoned up about is that, tell me if I'm scaremongering, but I think this devolution, if it carries on going and going, I think we will end up with Sharia law strongholds in certain parts of Britain, because I think that's what it will end up as. Do you think that can happen?
Well, I think what can happen, Martin, is it can happen unofficially, can't it?
Yeah, but
and when there's a tipping point, when it reaches that sort of critical mass, then it doesn't need to be legislative. It can just be happening every day and in our community. And that is the real problem, Martin. Listen, Martin, I mean, what is going to wake people up? We've had so many attacks across the West over so many years. And what we get, Martin, every time is hand-wringing from the politicians, bouquets of flowers, thoughts and prayers. We don't want thoughts and prayers, do we? We want change.
Well, two quick things before I let you move on. 25 years ago, my father died, and one of the things he said is, if you keep importing the third world, you become the third world. And I thought, oh, that's ridiculous. We've got 70 million people here. We're fine. Well, you know what? It's becoming more and more real. And the other thing is, I just think we are being taken over slowly, and people don't like admitting it, do they?
Well, they don't. What was your dad's name, Martin?
My dad was Robert, and he didn't like that. He was in the Second World War. He flew a plane, and he did his bit. But he could see the writing on the wall, and because we've got so many people at the time, you know, I thought, oh, don't be daft, that can't happen. But you know, you fast forward 25 years. I mean, God, hasn't it changed?
Yeah, I mean, Robert, your dear old man who served for this country, and for that we salute him. He was right, wasn't he, Martin?
He was absolutely right, and I think we will. I mean, if somewhere like Bradford or Leicester gets complete devolution, and to me, before I let you go, I think they will become virtually no-go areas for the indigenous population.
Martin, thank you for your call. You're entitled to your view, and you're a chip off the old block, so thank you for that. Martin, we'll speak soon, and in loving memory of your late father. Alex, we've got, don't we, to have this conversation about national identity, about tradition, about borders, about the very concept of what the West is.
Yes, and we are just, I don't get it, Mark, and it's not just the UK, as you say, I don't get it why we just let it happen. Last week on the show, we talked about 500,000 people deciding, another 500,000 people deciding not to pay their television licence. They're just not bothering. They've fallen out of love with the BBC, and we see their people power, but we're not seeing it over anything else. Why do we let it happen? And from what your last caller said, people will choose not to go to. Let's just take Bradford for an example, right? If people just think, well, I'm not going to go to Bradford anymore. I don't fit in. I don't feel comfortable there. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Bradford, but why would someone like me who's never been there now decide to go to Bradford? I might decide to go to Aberdeen or Cornwall, but I might feel I'm not welcome in places like that. So you're right. This kind of evolves. You don't need legislation. They're not exactly no-go areas, but they will become that for people like me and people like you. Well,
let me give you an example. 20 years ago, Alex, I hosted a street festival in Bethnal Green in East London, near Whitechapel, a very concentrated Muslim area. And I was on stage, and there were a group of young lads that started heckling me. And, of course, as a comedian, I welcome a bit of heckling. It's an opportunity to show my keen wit and fast mind. But this was different. This was threatening and sinister. And they were shouting at me in another language, and it stayed with me. And that was 20 years ago. And that was it. This is London is my hometown. I was born here. And I felt intimidated in my own city by a particular community. And that, of course, was just the beginning. That was the tip of the iceberg.
I know. And we, obviously, no matter where you're from, where you're born, it's like, if I asked you the greatest decade for music, TV, film, it would be from your youth, like it would be from my youth and from people, because that is what we lock into. That is where we feel safe. That is where our cherished memories are. And it's the same for where we are from. Right? So we are very proud of London because it's our city. So when we see people coming in and disrespecting our city, not paying their taxes, not putting in, burning our flag, even just chucking their rubbish out with disregard in front of us as we walk the streets, we are going to be hacked off. And we're meant to be hacked off because we need to care. And that's the same for anyone around the world. But we don't like it happening under our noses.
Linda in Stalybridge. Hi, Mark. The people have woken up and want change. It's the governments that have not. Is Andy Burnham going to call a snap general election for November of this year? That's next, 7:50, Talk Breakfast.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. I'm live in the studio with BBC radio legend Alex Dyke. Alex, always fantastic to have you in. Piers Pottinger is one of the best connected political PRs in the country, and he is predicting that Andy Burnham is going to use the Burnham bounce to call a general election for November of this year. Your reaction?
What bounce? What burn? I would think, because obviously now we're in this summer recess, he can go out, he can get lots of positive press, he can say stuff, he can promise things that he doesn't have to deliver on. Maybe a few weeks of that, couple of months of that, maybe it would be a good time for him. I don't know. I would think that if it were me, I'd want to come in and show some change, but I want to do it about... He's not mentioned... And I can't, with all the advisors these people have got, he has not mentioned immigration. He's mentioned unemployment. He's mentioned things like that, which are very, very important. But he's not mentioned what Britain are talking about. If you and I went into a pub this lunchtime, in fact, if we went on a pub crawl and we went to 6 or 7 pubs, we know what the people in the pubs would be talking about. They would be talking about not feeling that Britain is theirs anymore. And where is this ever going to end? Who's going to put a stop to it? And it should be Andy Burnham, but he's not going to do it.
Interesting. Alex, what else have you got for us today?
Right, talking of Andy Burnham, I love this, Mark, and I think producer Dean has opened the Daily Mail to pages 6 and 7.
Yes.
So this is the Makerfield look. This is the man of the people.
I love it.
This is Andy Burnham in an £80 T-shirt. Now, before I came on air, what I did was I Googled some other items of clothes, because obviously he's a socialist. So if you're going to buy a T-shirt, he could get one for £2.50. But, you know, to have a photo taken in, even if it's only worth 2 or 3 good washes. But his T-shirt was £80. His blue casual jacket, that could have set him back £17, has cost him £595. He's not George Michael, for goodness sake. This man is meant to be setting an example, like Keir Starmer was before the suits and the spectacles. John Prescott with 2 Jags all those years ago. What don't these socialists get? His blazer, Mark, he could have got it. He could have got it for £18. I found it for £18 today, and I don't even do internet shopping. Within 2 seconds, I got it for under £20. £695. His polo shirt, £195. What is this man trying to say? It's crazy.
Well, it's because he's a cosplay working class man. He's a pretend working class man.
Sure.
Where did he go to university? Cambridge, for goodness sakes. He's been in politics for best part of 3 decades. He's just a man that's climbed the slippery pole, never done a day's work in his life. Make it make sense. How can you even find a T-shirt that costs 80 quid? I didn't know such a thing existed as an 80 quid T-shirt.
No.
Where would you get an 80 quid? T-shirts are cheap, aren't they?
Well, they are cheap, and we don't want to promote those awful sweatshops where you can buy a T-shirt for £1 and all that. There is that side to it. And, of course, a good quality one will do several good washes. But he doesn't need that. If he wants to look like man of the people, for God's sake, dress like a man of the people. Look at the guys who are in the social clubs, the working men's clubs. Look at how they dress. I mean, I'm not... Actually, do you know what I would have liked? A suit and tie, a collar and tie for a Prime Minister. This kind of cool look, you can only do it if you're cool.
And also Poundland Zelensky going around in a black suit with a black shirt. You know, as you say, collar and tie. What you've done is extraordinarily important this morning, Alex. You've exposed Andy Burnham for the fraud that he is.
Well, I like to think so, Mark, but I've done it with a little bit of help from the journalists at the Mail on Sunday.
Well, there you go. Now, what else have you got for us?
OK, so if you turn back a page to page 5, there's this exclusive in the Mail on Gary Lineker. patriotic millionaire. Lineker accused of gross hypocrisy over his 5-year battle against a £5 million tax bill. But what he's done is he and 99 other millionaires in the UK have signed for Andy Burnham a letter for tax increases. And what he said is, we want to pay tax. We can afford it. Now, nobody really wants to... I've only met one person who was happy to pay their tax, and actually it was a lefty at the BBC, a really nice journalist, who told me once why he loved paying his taxes. Anyway, if you read the story, it is quite interesting, and I've not got the time to actually give you many facts on it now, but this is a man who's getting 1.7 million a year as the BBC's highest presenter when he was fighting
to
this
read
tax
out
bill.
football results.
Yeah, to read out football results and do quite a good job.
Sure.
Quite a good job of presenting it. But you didn't need to be giving him nearly £2 million a year of licence fee. That is not a good look for the BBC. What do the left and what do the BBC not get? How can they fail consistently to read the room?
Well, you mentioned 1.7 million a year to read football results. That's probably 20 or 25 local radio presenters that you could pay for.
Yeah, and I don't mind. If it's Chris Moyles or Chris Evans and they can set the world on fire, I don't mind.
My thanks to Alex Dyke. More to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
It is therefore my honour to declare that the duly elected leader of the Labour Party is Andy Burnham.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. I believe in all of you, and I am confident we can do it. Thank you very much. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now.
Our fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Blimey. And, well, look, we want him to succeed. But will this one be any different? Andy Burnham, the new head honcho, the speed this all happened, I know this is a well-trodden debate already, is actually breathtaking. 1 minute he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. What, a month and a bit ago he wasn't even an MP. The next he's holding keys to number 10 without the country ever really having a chance to scrutinise him in a prospective prime ministerial arena. Nothing at all. We really know very little.
I think Burnham has to walk a fine line. I think that's probably what's going on, because if he were to sweep into Downing Street and say, I'm going to change everything, I'm going to fix everything, I'm going to do things completely differently to Starmer, then people would say, hold on, mate, we need a general election in that case, because no one voted for that. No one voted for you to be Prime Minister. You weren't standing in the 2024 general election. We've never seen your manifesto. Who the hell are you? That's what people would be asking.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I think we've got Fat Boy Slim with us this morning. He's on the deck, so I like it. Mix it up a little bit. This is better than Radio 1, isn't it? By the way, I could save Radio 1. Are you kidding? It's not going to happen because I'm in a golden handcuffs deal at Talk. Easy for you to say. Folks, welcome to Talk Breakfast. It is 3 minutes past 8, a really busy show this morning. Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. I'm going to be dealing with Andy Burnham in no uncertain terms. Is he a fraud? Is he a charlatan? Is he a con man? I'll be giving my verdict in 1 hour's time. You won't want to miss it. And it's the interview they all wanted. The Australian Nigel Farage, Pauline Hanson from the One Nation Party, live on the show at 8:30. I guarantee you will not want to miss that. Box office stuff, bring popcorn. But breaking this morning, German police are conducting a manhunt as they search for a radical Islamist who mowed down scores of people with a van at Berlin's annual Gay Pride March. We'll bring you more as we get it. But when are the West going to wake up to the threat of radical Islam? And we're going to talk about the Prime Minister this morning because he's talked about an awful lot of things. We've had social media videos about his favourite pub snacks and pork scratchings. We've had a David Brent-style tour of the preposterous Number 10 North. We've had lots of vibes, lots of positive PR, lots of very empty promises which won't improve people's lives. But not a squeak about illegal immigration. He's not mentioned it once. So my question to you this morning is a simple one at 8:05 in the morning. Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. Of the day, I'm delighted to welcome political consultant, broadcaster and man about town, Peter Barnes. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm very well, and with a weary sense of predictability.
Yeah.
Here we go again. A gay pride event in Berlin, which is a very liberal left-wing city. And yet you have a population within that city which contains within it a hateful ideology that detests Western values, detests gay people. So we've got a man that was known to the authorities. How often have you heard that expression?
I'm sick of hearing that, personally.
And this is an Islamist who's been known to the authorities. There's a manhunt going on who looks to have jumped into a van and mowed down 16 people, one fatality, others seriously injured. This could have been London. It could have been Paris. It could have been Madrid. When is the West going to wake up?
I can't answer that because I don't think it ever will. I think we are led by people that realistically will never hold their hands up and realise the damage, the death that they've caused throughout the West. I go as far back as Angela Merkel. When she opened up the gates and flooded Europe in 2015, she fundamentally put Europe on a track of death, destruction and misery. Because that's what's been imported here. When you bring people from countries where it is illegal to be gay, they don't just leave that opinion at Calais. They bring it to London, they bring it to the UK, they bring it to Berlin, they take it to Amsterdam, to Barcelona. It is everywhere. I am sick to death of the LGBT establishment, and what I mean by that are organisations like Stonewall, who welcome these people in, treat them as some kind of victim, and then are shocked when these things happen. When 16 people on what was supposed to be a fun day has been left traumatised, one dead. You're very right. This could have been London. There were massive gay pride events here in London yesterday. Huge events. There are thousands of people out about in this city. And
left-wing events.
They are. But
and yet they've been targeted by the group that they've been cheerleading, which is Islamists.
Yes.
So the left, the woke left, have been all in with Islamism.
Yeah.
We know that because of the weekly hate marches that make Jewish people afraid to leave their homes. And we know that with the hand-wringing every time there's a terror attack. And we know that from the deafening silence of establishment media who don't want to say the true bit out loud, which is that Islam contains within it a fascist, hateful ideology about which too many moderate Muslims are silent and about which the establishment are running scared.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. They're terrified of it. And more importantly, I think you bring up a really good point about the moderate Muslim population and their silence. And more importantly, I look at the strength of the kind of the mosques network and how they do not work with the authorities to identify people like this. They do not do enough. I'm sorry. It is not obviously, it is not on every Muslim to kind of protect, to kind of, you know, work with the authorities and all this kind of stuff. It's not. But when it's your religion that's being used like this, I think you should be a little bit more concerned. Because it's killing people. How many more people have to die before we realise there is a significant problem here? It is astounding to me. I had friends at that Berlin event yesterday, and it's terrifying.
I'm really sorry
it's
to hear that. Are they okay?
Luckily, yes. But they weren't that far away from where it happened. And they said the city just shut down. They were terrified. And it's awful. But it's not even at these big events. It's every single day. You know, you walk around the city, and there's certain bits of it gay people don't go to. They just don't go to. Why? It's the high areas of immigrant populations. It's Tower Hamlets. It's Whitechapel. Tower Hamlets has one of the highest recorded rates of homophobic hate crime. You know, that's not an accident.
Bradford, Leicester.
Yeah, same examples.
Good luck being gay or trans in certain parts of those once great cities.
100%. You wonder why pockets of cities end up being these kind of like gay enclaves. It's because it's safe. It's because, you know, you are less likely to be attacked. You can actually be yourself on the street. I'm not one of these people that obviously kind of, all the pride stuff. I actually find it quite irritating. But we actually need pride to start defending us and actually start making sure that these events don't happen anymore because because the people who are supposed to protect us are literally putting the wolf at our door. And that's the reality of it. The fact that, people like Anne Widdecombe, who, were castigated by people like Peter Tatchell for being a bigot, yet where's his condemnation today? Where's his...
There will be nothing from him.
There'll be nothing.
There will be nothing from the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's not forget, here in London, they put a radical cleric on the side of a bus who thought that gay people were equivalent to farm animals.
And allowed performative prayers at Trafalgar Square, which is not in the Muslim tradition, by the way, to have outdoor prayer, in the same location that now has concrete barriers so that trucks and vans can't be used as weapons against people.
Yeah, 100%. I heard you earlier on this morning say that's progress. Well, you said, well, look what progress looks like.
The jewel in the crown of our capital city
it's ridiculous.
Is Trafalgar Square. These ugly concrete barriers.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, some people call them diversity barriers.
I've heard this.
Which I think is golden.
Yeah,
and actually,
but it's accurate. It's accurate at this point.
We should laugh at this because it's absurd.
Yeah.
And the queers for Palestine, they've gone very quiet today.
Well, I always say I'll pay for you to go to Palestine and see how long you survive. Douglas Muriel said the greatest thing. He said the best thing to ever happen to gay people in Gaza. There's no more tall buildings to throw us off.
Imagine.
I mean, and that's the reality of it. These people welcome people into the nation that would string us up by a crane. Literally at the town square, and think they're doing the right thing. And now you've got parties like the Green Party, Zach Polanski, cozying up to this radical element. And it's not just the Jewish community that's a threat. The gay community, in my opinion, has actually not been talked about enough when we talk about the migrant crisis, when we talk about the safety on the streets, realistically. We talk about women's safety, very rightly. We talk about the rise of anti-Semitism. But the steady rise of homophobic hate crime in the UK is very stark. It was 4,000 incidents in 2012. Now it's 26,000.
And here's the great irony. It's actually the woke left, the greatest targets of the Islamists, because everything they represent, sexual liberation, personal freedom, progressive values, are something that they actually hate and condemn. Ironically, it's true ultra-conservatives and people on the far right that are probably safest within this strange ideology of Islamism. And yet it's so funny that the left have voted for Christmas on this one, that they've been all in, either cheerleading or at the very least silent on this issue. And it's the Islamists that are going for them now.
Oh, I mean, that's a tale as old as time. Eventually the Islamists turn on the left.
Can you tell us about Iran? Right, well, so for those that don't know what happened there, it was the Islamic Revolution. Late 70s. Encouraged and fuelled by the political left in Iran, which was a successful, coherent, well-integrated society.
Yeah, well, yes, it was successful, coherent, very prosperous, you know, a open, pretty liberal society.
Women dressed in Western clothing.
Yeah. Then came along the radical Islamists and basically decimated that state. Decimated, killed people for literally being who they are. I don't think people really understand that.
But they reached power with the support of the left.
Yeah.
Who then were massacred.
Yeah, I don't know why they keep doing that. Throughout history, I don't understand why they do.
Well, I think because they're not right in the head.
Well, I think that, I presume they were dropped at birth, but there you go.
Yeah,
but,
to be unscientific.
Yeah,
I think to a degree it's a bit of a pathology, like the woke mind virus, the suicidal
what is it,
empathy.
Gadsad calls it? Suicidal empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's no longer suicidal because they're offering up people. They're offering up the gay community to these people every single day, and we will get nothing more than we should all hold hands, sing Kumbaya, I don't look back in anger, and everything will be okay. It's not okay anymore. It's not okay for us to continually say, oh, well, not all Muslims, oh, well, we have to worry about social cohesion, all this stuff. There is no social cohesion. If somebody cannot be themselves living in the UK, a liberal, progressive, very modern, very prosperous nation, if they do not feel safe walking from their house to Tesco's, that is not a good country. That's not a safe place to live, whether you're a woman, whether you're gay or whatever. It is absolutely amazing to me that people use that phrase of social cohesion and community cohesion as though it actually exists. It just doesn't exist. Everybody is terrified because the police... You know, where are they? When it comes to all this stuff, they're nowhere to be seen. I use the example of there was a stabbing outside a place in Clapham, and it was a homophobic attack. The moment the CCTV footage came out that guy was not white, it disappeared from the mainstream media. Organisations like Stonewall went quiet, and yet it's still they're still trying to find him.
And if what happened in Germany was as a result of the far right, of neo-Nazis, who are, of course, wicked people... But if Berlin, that attack was the far right, if Bondi Beach had been the far right, if Manchester Arena had been the far right, you wouldn't hear the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because those things weren't the far right, all we had was hand-wringing, prayers and bouquets of flowers.
Yes. Well, we had strong statements. What do the Americans always say? Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Well, I'm rather sick of thoughts and prayers, if I'm being honest. It's not safe. It's not safe. Yesterday, I left here when I was with Alex, and I went with my partner. We went to Bethnal Green. There's a restaurant he wanted to go to. I've never been more terrified in my life going.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, I held onto my phone tighter. I had my work bag with me. I grabbed hold of that. Gay people, we don't... We have to think about how we behave in certain places.
In a capital city of your country.
Yeah. It's a common thing that we all do. It's one of those really quiet bits of kind of homophobia that people don't really realise, is that you just don't feel safe because you don't know what's going to happen. You get on a bus in London, you don't know who that person is, you don't know what's going to happen, so you don't do what a normal couple, what a straight couple would do. I think it is literally how we have to behave.
And the problem you've got is that the political establishment and the media elite are going to allow this to ferment via their silence and complicity.
Yeah, and more importantly, if you dare speak up, you're the problem.
Yeah, and when you have thoughts and prayers and bouquets of flowers, that is complicity.
Oh, yes. If you've got the power to stop this and you don't, you might as well have driven the van as far as I'm concerned.
Well, if you do thoughts and prayers every time, then you're saying this is okay.
Yeah.
Because if I was Prime Minister, I wouldn't do thoughts and prayers. I would say, this is bad and we're going to change this.
Yeah,
if you do thoughts and prayers, you're saying this is okay, in my opinion.
Yes.
If you interpret underneath it,
because
what
like
is
you
the
said,
message of thought and prayers? Thought and prayers is, that's the price you pay for a diverse society.
Oh, yes.
That's the message, in my opinion.
What was it, Sadiq Khan, part and parcel of living in a capital city? When we're talking about terror events, that's what Sadiq Khan...
So he said the true bit out loud?
Yeah. Yeah, it was in, 2015, 2016?
So this guy is so craven, you don't even have to interpret his words?
No, not at all. It's absolutely amazing to me that... it's because it's not just people like Sadiq Khan or even Andy Burnham who has been silent on the issue of migration. I look at Zach Polanski, I look at Ed Davey, I look at the other leaders of the nation and other political parties that have the power to actually prevent a lot of this stuff. They're complicit in it as well. You wonder why gay men are running to reform UK in terms of a voter base.
They are.
It's for safety. It's for safety and for tax purposes, but it's mainly for safety.
The pink pound.
Yeah, the pink pound. But also, this started in 2015. Isn't that funny? When that That's when the main source of the refugee crisis started, when they moved to the Conservatives, and now they're moving to Reform UK. You can literally track it. It's the statistics just don't lie on this stuff.
I will say, interestingly, with regard to moderate Muslims, many of whom listen to this show, and you've got Muslim neighbours, Muslim colleagues, Muslim partners, Muslim lovers, right? And it's important to understand that Islamism is a nasty pocket within, and you've said that the community are too silent on this.
Yes.
You are right. I will throw in. I took a call from one particular Muslim who said, "I agree with you. To speak, if I speak out, I will be attacked, ostracised, potentially harmed or killed."
Yeah.
When we complain that moderate Muslims don't do more, some of it is fear.
Oh, yes. And yes, of course it is. And I feel so sorry for them. A friend of mine, he's here, he's actually is a refugee. He came from Egypt, running from persecution. He can't go back home because he knows his uncle will kill him for being gay. He knows that. And yet, we're continuing. So we have people faking being gay to get into the country. And yet, where was the outrage of that? Oh, it's just a small minority. It's just a small pocket. It doesn't matter how big the number is. It's about the fact that people are abusing a system and exploiting it, and then you wonder why things like, Berlin happened. Because you're so right, that could have been in London.
Well, let's take a couple of voice notes. And Matthew, if you can, stick that voice note on a fader for me, and let's hear from Craig, if we can.
Good morning, Mark. This is Craig from Ilkley in Yorkshire. So those on the left who claim to be progressive, with views of allowing women to be men and men to be women and so on, they also support people coming in from third world countries who support Islam. But Islam hasn't progressed and moved on in 1400 years. So on one hand, the left is really confused. They want to be progressive, but supporting a group of people who still want to live as if they did 1400 years ago when their religion was invented. It's completely bonkers and contradictory. It doesn't make sense. They could either be progressive or not. They can't be both. It doesn't add up. Thank you very much now. Bye-bye.
Craig, you're right. It doesn't make sense. And if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, brackets, it's a duck. More voice notes and calls to come. Next up, 2 quick questions. Is Andy Burnham planning a November snap election? And will our new Prime Minister stop the boats? 8:20 Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's take some more voice notes if we can. Talk Breakfast. Don't forget, Australia's Nigel Farage joins me at 8:30. Pauline Hanson, leader of the One Nation Party, she is storming it in Australia at the moment. Why? Because they face similar challenges to us. She's described the UK as a sad, sorry island. I'll be asking her why in just a few minutes. With me in the studio, Peter Barnes, political strategist, and here's a voice note from Big Wayne.
Morning, Mark. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham, mate. When are the West going to realise that these people from the third world want to come into our country, take over, rape its women, just commit foul crimes, and we're allowing it to go on, and we have done for 20-odd years? This is an absolute disgrace. There'll be nothing left of Europe soon. It's about time everybody woke the hell up. Keep up the good work, Mark.
Thank you for that, Wayne. Vernon is in Staffordshire. Vernon, you're live with the political strategist Peter Barnes. Good morning, sir.
Greetings from the safest country in probably the world, Mark. I'm in Poland currently.
I see. Lucky you being in Poland. What do you make of what happened in Berlin yesterday with 16 gay people mown down, 1 dead?
Only a matter of time before it happens in the UK, Mark, because they live amongst us. We do nothing about it. I'm in Poland, a very proud Englishman that has 0 rights, and it's not a problem. It's no problem, Mark.
You can't you can't have benefits or any of that stuff, right?
No, yeah, I don't. For me, it's quite simple. I come as a guest, behave as a guest, and if I don't behave, they kick me out. There's no left out here saying, "Oh, he's a nice man. Well, he just killed someone. He's raped someone. We'll just give him a house." Mark, the world's gone mad.
It has gone mad. And Poland, Vernon, massive on strong borders, aren't they?
It's fantastic, Mark. It's how the UK used to be. Flags everywhere. Polish flags everywhere. It's heartbreaking, Mark. See what's happened to our country because our kindness is killing us. And all the politicians of all parties are complicit. Law enforcement, councillors, the political parties, they are all guilty as charged. Sue me, please, because the statement I've just made is fact.
May I ask a question?
It's just nonsense.
When you walk down the street, what's the most common language that you hear spoken? Polish. Yeah, that's amazing. I was walking around the City of London. I think I didn't hear English for about 15, 20 minutes walking around.
Do you know what, gents? It's fantastic. The pride, the nationalism, and yet we call that racism. It's just beautiful out here. It's just all I can tell you is that I'm here as a guest, behave as a guest. I've been coming here now for best part of 15 years. My country, the United Kingdom, England, goes down the toilet. This country just gets better and better and better. And if you misbehave, you can never come here. If you are religious, you can come, but your religion is irrelevant. It's a Catholic country. It's for the Polish people. I encourage everybody to watch an interview with the Hungarian Prime Minister and Emily Maitalis, where she outlines and calls him a racist. He said, "I'm not a racist. Hungary is for Hungarians. In my opinion, England is for the English, the British." Yeah, that's what it is. It's not a racist attitude. But we are allowing the third world into our country, and then we are crying when they bring their barbaric third world behaviours. My son goes to school close to Stoke-on-Trent, and it's like the United Nations. I'm in the playgrounds, and English is very rarely spoken. And it's worse. And do you know why I say complicit? Because those in power, they want an issue. And then when there's an issue, you know what I'm talking about. When there's an issue, they will lock down. I mean, to me, the whole thing's broken. Foreign prisoners in prison, send them home. Real simple. These people that commit crimes, they don't deserve human rights. What about the people that they've injured? Where is this going wrong? Joined up thinking in England 2 and 2 make 5.
Well said. Vern, I wish we had longer, but more power to you as well, that you're in the relative safety of Poland, but still concerned about the plight of a country that you love. Vernon, call me again soon and we'll speak at greater length. Peter Barnes, 2 issues that we need to get to before you run and before we get Pauline Hanson on, the Australian Nigel Farage. And the first one is Andy Burnham has said a lot this week about electricity bills. By the way, 45 quid a year, we're going to say.
Yeah.
Don't spend it all at once.
I'll try not to. I'll walk out the front door. I've already spent for 40 quid. It's amazing in London.
And by the way, because of inflation, it's actually going to go up 90, so we're actually minus 55, so it's not much of a saving.
Thanks for that.
Then we've got the pubs who are he's going to save the pubs, right? The cavalry.
What, the 4 that are left?
It's a lame donkey, not the cavalry, because it's £1,000 a year. Do you know a pub that's going to be transformed with a saving of £1,000 a year?
I don't. No, not at all. It's laughable. It's laughable. But what it is a headline. It's a slogan.
And it's working. Because
working.
The PR, unfortunately, has been great this week.
Because he's very good at this. I've been saying for a long time, he's a great communicator. He's a nice guy. That gets you very far. The thing is, the way people have been attacking him and actually criticising this stuff, rightly so, hasn't worked because you can't attack a popular guy. You look spiteful, you look kind of petty, because he's got a positive polling rating, personally, and the Labour Party is now touching distance to Reform UK. I mean, that sentence should not exist. The Labour Party should be so far down in the polls, it's laughable, but they're not. And, you know, we have to start wondering, very rightly, I do think, and I've said this a while actually, to be fair, that the general election is coming, and I think it will be after conference season, probably November, December, without a shadow of a doubt.
And the reason why is because I believe that Andy Burnham is a charlatan and a con man. It's my personal view. I mean, this is a guy that's going to tackle homelessness, which has actually trebled since he was Greater Manchester Mayor, so good luck with that. And I think he's also full of himself, you know. I think he'd eat himself if he was made of chocolate.
Oh, definitely.
But he's a smart politician, like you said, and I think a couple of years he'd be found out. But I reckon he can kind of ride the crest of this wave for a couple of months.
Yeah.
So the timeline suits him. 2 aspects. The Burnham bounce still there, and a reform movement and party that's not ready.
Yes. 100% correct. The Labour Party, realistically, are the only one ready for a general election because they've already got the candidates, they've got the most MPs, everything is already there. You've then also got what's coming up very soon. You've got the Greater Manchester Mayor election. So, you know, how that plays out is realistically is looking like it's going to go in Burnham's favour. So then that's momentum. He's got the constituency, he'll take the region. Now he'll say, I need a mandate from the people. And that is how he'll do it. And he'll wait for conference season, so he looks like the Prime Minister. He's got all the photos, all the B-roll stockage ready to go. And then it'll be a full frontal assault from a very powerful Burnham machine. Because not only have you got the Labour Party machine, his own personal brand, if it holds, will trounce most other politicians.
So what you've got is the Conservatives still in recovery mode.
Yeah.
Reform exposed because of the 5 million.
Yeah.
And don't have the candidates.
No.
Don't really have the top team yet. Is there a defence spokesperson? Is there a housing spokesperson?
No.
So
Well,
this
there
is his opportunity. What's the nightmare scenario that Labour win the election in November and then we've got 5 more years of this?
The nightmare scenario is that even if Labour don't win the majority of MPs, they do a deal with the Greens and the Lib Dems and we get the Rainbow Coalition. Do not forget that Andy Burnham, just a few months ago, was willing to do a kind of speech at the Green Party conference. So he's already shown a willingness to work with other parties. That makes him more dangerous because the right, we can't be in the same room as each other at the moment. The left understand one thing and one thing alone, power. They don't need to win, they just need to keep hold of power.
Now, are you ready for more horror? Because I wonder whether Andy Burnham in the manifesto puts proportional representation as a policy.
Interestingly, it wasn't in the last one.
No,
because I went through it the other
Burnham
day.
thinks differently.
Yes, yeah, 100%. And also, again, if they... The left is very good at staying in power without being in power. So, yeah, we'll see a lot more constitutional tinkering. That's the devolution. And I do think we'll see a change to the voting system, particularly at general elections, because devolution, we've seen it in mayor, how we vote for mayors and all that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, well, I think realistically he will put it in the next Labour manifesto.
Well, this would be very smart, I think, because what I suspect will happen is that there will be a Burnham bounce.
Yeah.
But I still think that most people, or a lot of people, are not happy with Labour and will consider him to be a little bit of a charlatan. So I think what's going to happen is that there will be a hung parliament Yes. And if it's in the manifesto already to have proportional representation, then that guarantees the support, for example, of the Liberal Democrats.
And the Green Party, and I bet you any money there will be a non-aggression pact if things like that go in the Labour manifesto. In other words, the Greens won't campaign as hard in certain seats, so Labour will either get the majority or don't have to kind of split the vote or anything like that, and that is how the left will stay in power.
Well, this is how strategically smart Andy Burnham is, that he takes the view that actually it is a hung parliament.
Yeah.
Because there's no way, notwithstanding his lovely eyebrows, that they will, in my view, win an overall majority anything like the one that Starmer achieved in 2024. Yeah. So with that in mind, perhaps he's already pricing in a hung parliament, and therefore he embeds PR within the manifesto, and that opens the door to a 5-year deal with those parties. The issue you've got then, if you have proportional representation, that is likely going to be left-wing, centre-left-wing rainbow alliances for the short to medium term of this country.
I think it might even be longer than that. I think if proportional... I really do. Bringing in proportional representation would fundamentally redesign the political makeup of the nation, because every constituency would be completely different.
And the problem you've got is that, yes, there are lots of right-wing voters, about 11.5, 12 million, but there are, if you put together and consolidate the SNP, Plaid Cymru, Labour and the Greens, there's more of them.
Particularly if you pick certain proportional representation systems, the right would be out of power for, what, generations, realistically. If you pick... There's lots of different ways you could have...
And then what happens to the country?
I don't think there will be one.
Do you want to war game that, in all seriousness?
I don't think it would be a war. I think it would be somewhat of just a quiet disintegration. I think we would be in a worse situation.
You'll have more illegal immigration, won't you? Because the Greens, for example, would like to have the so-called safe routes.
Oh, yes, the so-called safe routes. Yes, that's a funny one.
So inflation would probably go from what it was last calendar year was about 65, 70,000 people, something like that.
Roughly,
circa. Minimum 50k plus.
Oh, yeah.
So that could double or triple, couldn't it?
Yeah, but then in the same rate, you'd see a capital flight just skyrocket. You'd literally see wealth taxes, you'd see increase in property taxes, increase in everything.
Emergency budgets.
Oh, yeah. But the thing is, this is why I've never really been on board with the idea that an economic incident will cause a general election, because the left don't care about an economic incident. They'll just blame rich people, or they'll blame bankers and billionaires.
Well, I think I'm going to shock you and say they might like an economic incident, because that can provoke an emergency budget with full-on socialism. You know, that could be saying, right, we're taking your house.
That's very true, actually. That is a very real idea, because look at how they exploit situations like the riots, for example. They use them as opportunities to push their ideology even harder by shutting things like free speech and social media control. So, yeah, an economic crisis is the perfect kind of cover for further socialism.
It's a fig leaf, because what they can say is, look, we don't want to have to do this, but if you've got a house worth over £1 million, we're gonna have to take 20% of it.
Yeah, because the people in this country still operate under the idea that you're poor because another person is rich. No, we don't. People are poor because of bad government policy by successive morons who don't understand how the economy works.
I think that an emergency left-wing budget on the watch of a left-wing coalition would contain within it the ideology that all property is theft. I think that's really what will happen. I think, for me, that's the worst-case scenario.
Yes, particularly if there is this kind of rainbow coalition, because that is the ideology of the Greens, that is the ideology of the very radical left, and it is creeping. It's not even creeping in, it's marching in at this point. And, you know, the right is too busy navel-gazing and arguing with itself and trying to have silly little arguments all the time about who's the real conservative, while literally this is happening. And I'm sorry, I think the right will be the reason the left win the next general election. I don't think they'll win it because they're brilliant. They'll win it because there's no opposition to them.
And here's the great irony. So much of the conflict within the right is about personality, ego and style and optics. I would say that the Tories reform and restore. I think that they agree on about, what, 85, 90% of everything?
Yeah, 100%. This is why it's the credibility argument.
I mean, Rupert's a closet Tory, isn't he?
Well, they all are. Nigel Farage is a reheated Thatcherite, basically. You know, I mean, most of the top echelons of Reform UK are all Tories. So, yeah, it makes... The idea that they're somehow a real Tory and not a one doesn't make any sense.
Well, Peter Barnes, you're a reheated Winston Churchill.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I think if anyone can save Britain, it's old Barnsley, isn't it? Have an excellent Sunday. Thank you for joining us. Of course, one of the most important voices here on Talk. A regular Talk host and, of course, political contributor, the excellent, marvellous Peter Barnes. Let's have those mayoral candidates for Manchester. Sian Neve Astley, Reform UK. Geraldine Coggins, Greens. Bev Craig, Labour and Cooperative Party. Phil Eckersley, Conservative and Unionist Party. Marcus Jonathan Farmer, Independent. Richard Martin Kilpatrick, Liberal Democrats. And Marlon Scott West, Restore Britain. Australia's Nigel Farage is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and we're looking forward to connecting with Pauline Hanson very shortly. She is, of course, Australia's Nigel Farage. And look, folks, we've got so many big stories to get through. I'm just going to give you the front pages. And I think what we'll do, we will take a call before Pauline. But to The Sun on Sunday, exclusive, cops on alert. Hunt for migrant boat killers. Attackers fled across the channel to the UK. So there was some extraordinary and horrific violence in France just a few days ago. The culprits are now reportedly, according to this Sun on Sunday exclusive, on their way over to the UK on a small boat. How many more of these things need to happen before there's going to be change? How many more people need to be murdered, raped? How many more terror incidents? How many more evil states like Iran who are using and leveraging illegal immigration to pose a threat to this country? When are we going to wake up? Stephen has joined the show. Good morning, Stephen. Thank you for calling Talk Breakfast. How are you today?
Oh, very well, thank you. Good morning. I'm actually in France at the moment, and it's cooled down here a bit. We've had terrible heat waves, so a bit relieved.
It's been very, very hot, and of course there's been wildfires across Europe. It's concerning time. Stephen, what do you make of what's happening in the UK at the moment?
Well, I've got my family there. I draw my pension from the UK, so I'm concerned that the UK does well. But this immigration crisis is the key to everything, I think. And as a former merchant Navy officer, I get a bit exasperated when I see these dinghies coming over, because the law of the sea is you rescue someone and you take them back to a safe port. A safe port would be Calais. So my idea is, I used to work on Liberian registered ships, which were flags of convenience, and it wouldn't be British registered. So we charter some Liberian ships, we round up these dinghies, and we take them back to Calais. I know the French could refuse, but can you imagine the UN and the international community if the French refused a ship landing rescued migrants?
Well, Stephen, I think it's a brilliant point. And can I also ask you, can you anticipate or imagine a scenario in which the Royal Navy turn these boats around?
I think it's more difficult because you're talking about territorial waters. And if the Royal Navy went inside the French zone, that would be a problem. So that's why I'm saying flags of convenience. Use Liberian registered vessels, then there's no international incident.
Can we turn the
regarding
boats
oil and
around when the vessels hit our stretch of water?
Yes, but then you come under maritime law, and I think it's the Rescue Control Centre. They direct the Navy to take them to a port, and as it's a British registered vessel, they would say take them to Dover.
So then you're back to square one.
Back to square one. So I would actually just have Liberian registered. In fact, the company I worked for was a Scottish company for many years, and they flagged a lot of our British ships in those days under Liberian flag to get away with the regulations. Well, the same applies when you're rescuing people. Once you have a ship that's registered to Liberia or Panama, who's going to say they can't go to Calais? Why would they have to go to Dover?
Yeah, well, I think you raise a very, very good point. And, Stephen, not a word about illegal immigration from our new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. What does that tell us?
Well, it tells you, I think, what all your commentators have been saying. He's window dressing at the moment, and he will call an election after the Labour Party conference. He'll promise the earth. He doesn't have to deliver it. And like they were saying, a lot of his little policies of tax changes, etc., don't come into force until next year. So, in fact, he doesn't have to prove anything at the moment. He could just promise the earth, go to the election, and then we'll end up with a hung parliament.
And, Stephen, what's happening in France politically? It's my understanding that Marine Le Pen can now run for president. Has she got a chance of winning?
She's got to, but the way it works here is you have the first round, and I think last time Marine Le Pen came out on top, but then they whittle it to the final two, and of course then the French hold their nose and they vote for the centre because they, you know what I mean, all the people, the lefties, like you say in the UK and the Greens, they all combine to keep Marine out. So while she's the most popular candidate, she could still fail in a second round election when all the Greens and the lefties and the Mélenchon Communist Party supporters all combine to keep her out.
Stephen, top man, thank you for your call and for your insight, speaking from France there, where, of course, things are moving politically very quickly indeed. Lots more to come. Next up, we are heading to Australia, and Pauline Hanson, a woman often described as the Australian Nigel Farage. 8:45, Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Pauline Hanson is often referred to as the Australian Nigel Farage. She's the leader of the One Nation Party, and they are doing very well in the polls right now. Pauline Hanson joins us. Good morning, Pauline.
Good morning, Mark. Hello.
It's brilliant to have you on the programme. What are the challenges and problems facing Australia that we may be able to relate to here in the United Kingdom?
I think mass migration is really top of the list, Mark, because they've brought in so many people into the country, 1.6 million under this current government, and it's just destroyed the housing market. We don't have enough homes for the people here. The infrastructure, the impact it's having on that. Your rental accommodation, most of the cities around the country, is less than 1%. So you're looking at 0.5, 0.6% rental accommodation. So it's very hard to get rental accommodation. They've gone up. You know, the rents is around about possibly $750 a week, and people that I know in the heart of Sydney are paying around about $1,800 to $2,200 a week for rent. So it's extremely high. Our cost of housing has gone up. So the medium house price, if you look in the cities, you're looking around about $1.2 to $1.5 million for a house. Cost of living, because we've headed down the path of net zero, renewables, we've done away with our resources like the coal-fired power stations. It's driven up the cost of power in Australia. It's increased by about 300%, our power bills in Australia. So they're the two main ones.
Why have the Australian authorities, the Australian establishment, allowed this to happen to the Australian people? Because it sounds like a net negative across the board. Housing, economy, community, society. It's all bad news. Why has it happened? Because
of the Labor Party and their policies. The coalition were responsible for a bit of it, but it's really gone up a lot under the Labor Party and their policies. They're a socialist, communist government that is actually driving people's standard of living and way of life. People are struggling. You've got 150,000 homeless people in Australia. People may even have jobs, but they can't afford the rent. So you've got families living in tents, in parks, in cars, in right across the country, or couch surfing with their friends wherever they can get a bed. It's disgusting. It should not be this situation here in Australia.
And it's a tragedy for the great nation of Australia, the great people of Australia, Pauline, because in many ways, Australia is a model to the world. From 10 years of illegal immigration, Operation Borders, very years. So having tackled illegal immigration, why did the establishment open the borders legally with such negative consequences?
Because they've run the country into the ground, and productivity is down, even investment in Australia. Now, productivity used to be around about 8.9% investment, and you're down to only about 5% at the moment. You've got a lot of countries now that were investing in Australia. Even BHP, they invested in Australia. Now they're looking at going and investing in Argentina. You've got Japan that really doesn't want to do any further business with us because there's no predictability. If you do any mining in Australia, it can take you up to 9 years to get approval. Anything here is tied down by red tape, blue tape and green tape, environmental issues. So, you know, investment in Australia is pretty sad. So the government has put on another 50,000 public servants since they've been in. So the cost to the taxpayer is blown out. They've spent money overseas, $600 million to Papua New Guinea for a football stadium. And they've given $50 million to Afghanistan, the Taliban. This is money that's just going out the door. You've got Chris Bowen, who's flying around the world, cost another $150 million because he's president of this climate change, BS. So it's just... So the government has had to bring in all these migrants in the country to prop up the GDP.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem is, Mark.
It is. It's like a Ponzi scheme. We've seen the UK in a similar situation, arguably worse than what's happening in Australia by an order of magnitude. Before we get to what you think of Britain at the moment, Pauline, of course, we're developing this story now. We've got the breaking news that German police are looking for an Islamist who appears to have mown down 16 people at a gay pride celebration in Berlin. Here we go again. Another day, another terror attack in the West.
You know, it's so distressing to hear that, Mark. It really is. And there's people out there saying, oh, well, you know, they're a peaceful religion. They're not a peaceful religion. They have an ideology. They hate the West. They hate our way of life, our standard of living. This is what I keep fighting against all the time. And, you know, people need to wake up. There's no utopia out there. You know, we have to fight for if we want a standard of living, a way of life, and protect our citizens. And that's what I'm doing. You know, I'd love to help everyone around the world. We've got about 60 million people that wants to come and live in Australia. We can't provide for that amount of people. And my job is to look after the people that are here now and give them a decent standard of living, make sure they have the health care that they need, have the operations that they need to have, a roof overhead, food on the table. That's my responsibility to the people here. And I'm going to be adamant in who we bring into the country. I don't want them from these Islamist radical countries. I don't want them wearing the burqa. And if I have a chance and we get government, I tell you what, Mark, that's what I'll be doing, banning the burqa. If you come from these radical countries, you won't get a foot in the door here.
And of course, many Arab states take the threat of Islamism far more seriously than countries like the UK and Australia.
Correct. They're telling us we're fools. We are absolute fools to open up the doors to these people. They won't even take them, these countries. If we actually have a look what happened into Egypt and Lebanon and the countries that were once Christian countries and their standard of living way of life, that's all gone. It was taken over. And we have the same problem here in Australia. And slowly, like Britain, Sharia law is happening in some of our suburbs. Now, I'm totally opposed to it. And multiple marriage, you know what, the government's not prepared to do anything about it. They're not going to call it out and put a stop to it. And it's a tough road to follow down, Mark, to actually do it. But we've got to make the tough stance.
Now, Pauline, you came to the UK just a couple of weeks ago for the CPAC Conservative Conference. You spoke very well. It was a compelling speech covering many of these issues and much besides. What do you make of Britain in 2026? It's changed massively in your lifetime. What is your appraisal of the UK right now?
It breaks my heart to see the way it is. I first came to Britain in 1977. And three of my grandparents came from Britain, one from Stonehenge and two from London. My grandfather was a carpenter from London who migrated out to Australia in about 1912. And to go back there quite a few times and being back in the country, and I can see the changes, especially in London. The graffiti that's there, the people that are on the streets, I don't see the people assimilating. I see divisions in your country. I see it on the TV screens all the time, that the Brits are being disenfranchised from their own country. You can't fly the flag. You can't show pride in who you are. The kids in schools must go to the Islamic mosques and pay homage to them. It's part of the curriculum. And then what I've heard is in your prisons, they've been taken over by the Muslims and they don't know what to do about it, the radicals. So they're radicalising other prisoners in prison. You're in deep problems over there, Mark, you really are, and that's how I see it. And good on the Brits for actually standing up and saying we've had enough.
Is the UK a warning to Australia about what can happen?
Too right it is. And it's not only the UK. I see it with France and Germany, and I also see it with Denmark and Canada and many other countries. The West has been sleeping. We have been warned about this, and we've been, just told a load of rubbish that they will assimilate. They say that we have to abide under the Quran. It says that we must abide by the laws of the land only for the period of time till they grow the numbers, then they get into councils, then they get into state governments, then they will have their say, and you're going to lose your country. What I've been told is you've got over 1,000 mosques in the UK, and you've got Sharia law courts. I'd be surprised you can ever turn it around. And it's going to have to take the British people to stand up You cannot just allow your members of parliament to take on this fight on your behalf. You, as a nation, as a people, have to stand up and support them, and you need to fight beside them. Get your country back.
Well, of course, that issue of Sharia law, it has no legal jurisdiction in the country, but it can still be happening within communities, enforced unofficially, which is a problem. Pauline, what would you say to those that might argue that your remarks about Islam are Islamophobic? Would you separate moderate Muslims with Islamists?
You know, what I've said, and we saw the Bondi attacks that happened out here, I didn't hear these imams or other people come out and ridicule and have a go at it. They didn't. We don't hear anything from them. It's they're deafening. It's quietness. It's deafening. So if they really are supportive of our culture and our way of life, come out and condemn them. They won't. They're not allowed to. And they won't put down their own, Muslim beliefs. So, as I said before, my concern is, where do their loyalties lie? And you can't trust them. And these people that have been in the country, they've come in as refugees or they've been born here. And a lot of these countries, even those people that were born there, they're being radicalised. They're actually turning and following the Islam beliefs. And I don't know why it's happening, even people that have been born here.
Well, Pauline, you couldn't make it up, because there are certain Arab states that will not allow their young people to come and study in the UK for fear that they will be radicalised into Islamism. And these are Arab states who, as we said earlier, are very tough on this hateful, wicked ideology. And, of course, we've had Manchester Arena, we've had London Bridge, we've had Berlin in the last 24 hours. Christmas markets have got armed cops. Western cities have concrete barriers now so that you can't use a car as a weapon. And, of course, Australia are still mourning Bondi Beach.
It is, Mark. We need to really open up our eyes and have a look what's happening. Why have we changed our stance on things to accommodate those people that we may not feel safe in our own countries? You know, it's too late when another life is taken. And as you said, opening there, what happened in Germany, we can't afford that. We can't afford to lose more lives. We need to get tough on this and say, sorry, we're not going to allow you. If Arab countries won't allow them in, why are we taking them in? Like we took 3,000 in from the Gaza. Now, 24-hour check on them. That's all it was, 24 hours. We don't know who they are. 75 to 80% of people from Gaza support the Hamas, the terrorist organisation. And we took them in. No, this was the Labor government. And I tell you what, the Labor governments right around the world are not there for the people. They've changed over the years. They used to be. They're not anymore. They're socialist, communist, Marxist governments, and these people, their thought process is not in the best interest for our countries.
Pauline, I've only got 60 seconds left. Can you win in Australia, and can you save Australia?
I believe that we can. The support that I'm getting as I move around the country, and I've been travelling today, the number of people that come up to me is absolutely astounding. And they're saying, please do not give up. Keep fighting for us. So we have to wait till the next election day. Mark, I'm going to do my best to fight for the people out there. But as I said, they've got to join the fight with me. I can't do it alone. And then it's making the tough decisions, which we can. You need leadership. People want strong, decisive leadership in the country.
Pauline, more power to you. An honour to have you on Talk Breakfast, and we will catch up soon. My thanks to Pauline Hanson, leader of One Nation. Australia facing many of the problems that the UK has, but we are arguably further down the road. We are further in the rabbit hole, and we might be beyond saving. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. More to come. Talk Breakfast.
It is therefore my honour to declare that the duly elected leader of the Labour Party is Andy Burnham.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. I believe in all of you, and I am confident we can do it. Thank you very much. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now.
Our fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Blimey. And, well, look, we want him to succeed. But will this one be any different? Andy Burnham, the new head honcho, the speed this all happened, I know this is a well-trodden debate already, is actually breathtaking. 1 minute he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. What, a month and a bit ago he wasn't even an MP. The next he's holding keys to number 10 without the country ever really having a chance to scrutinise him in a prospective prime ministerial arena. Nothing at all. We really know very little.
I think Burnham has to walk a fine line. I think that's probably what's going on, because if he were to sweep into Downing Street and say, I'm going to change everything, I'm going to fix everything, I'm going to do things completely differently to
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This
Mark Dolan, Talk Breakfast, a big hour to come, and breaking this morning, German police are conducting a manhunt as they search for a radical Islamist who mowed down scores of people with a van at Berlin's annual Gay Pride March. Here we go again. When is the West going to wake up to this wicked, radical Islamist ideology? Surely it's an existential threat to this country and across the rest. Your reaction to that story, 03444991000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. We'll bring you more as we get it. When will the establishment wake up to the threat of radical Islam? You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. As the saying goes, let's talk. But as always, at this time every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, it's Dolan's Dispatch. Sorry, folks. Am I the only one not caught up in Andy Burnham fever? He's been running the country for less than a week, and it doesn't feel like a premiership. It feels like a marketing campaign. We've had the crushingly awkward social media video of Burnham giving us a tour of the preposterous number 10 North office in Manchester. So cheesy, it would have David Brent blushing. We had the wacky clip of Burnham and the Chancellor discussing their favourite bar snacks. Apparently, Andy likes pork scratchings. Well, the performative nonsense after just 5 days in office really is scratching the bottom of the barrel. Even his image on his X account is a cartoon illustration. Nothing about this man feels real. And that improvised speech in front of number 10 Downing Street, don't get me started. Larry the Cat would have been more commanding. In that speech, Andy Burnham limped from one platitude to another before suddenly remembering that he wanted to end homelessness. A laudable goal fantastic. But good luck with that, given that homelessness tripled in Manchester on his watch. And if he's let loose with his ultra-socialist ambitions, by the next election, we'll all be sleeping rough and homeless. But it's not just the videos and the photo opportunities. The so-called policies are performative as well. He's going to save the pubs, apparently, by cutting business rates. Well, if you crunch the numbers, pubs are going to be better off to the tune of £1,000 a year. £1,000 a year they will save. Are you kidding me? They need £1,000 a day to stop going bust. And UK hospitality are not celebrating. They predict that that £1,000 will be dwarfed by an extra £4,500 in costs by 2027, rising to £7,000 by 28. All thanks to the national insurance hike, the red tape, the minimum wage increase, all courtesy of this Labour government. So you gain £1,000 and lose £7,000. Welcome to Burnham Omics. Cutting VAT on electricity, another joke. We're going to save, wait for this, because there's been headlines everywhere. This guy has achieved a lot of PR in a week. This cut of VAT on our electricity bills will save us, are you ready? £45 a year. My goodness! 45 quid a year. What are we all going to do with that extra money? Well, of course, we won't have it, because bills are going up by 90 quid. So again, the so-called saving is less than the incoming cost. These numbers would have even Rachel Reeves scratching her head. Number 10 North is already proving to be a patronising, meaningless white elephant, and a costly one in time and money, with the PM and his staff and civil servants travelling miles by air, land and sea just to get to this ridiculous office, just to indulge in political theatre. I'm so sorry, Andy, but the office of this country is in Downing Street. Have you heard of it? Number 10 Downing Street. That's the office of this country. It was good enough for Winston Churchill, who won the Second World War, and it was good enough for Margaret Thatcher, who transformed Britain from the sick man of Europe into a global powerhouse. So forgive me if I think that number 10 is good enough for you as well. What a joke. What an insult that this iconic building, 10 Downing Street, the backdrop of our democracy, should be snubbed in this way. Now, I'm calling it early. It's my view that Andy Burnham is a preening narcissist. It's my view that he's a charlatan. It's my opinion that our new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is a con man. Prove me wrong, and I do hope that I am. But we didn't vote for this guy, and now he's in power. And it's funny because we've heard so much from Andy this week on so many issues, except about anything that matters. No plan for growth, no plan for inflation, no plan for unemployment, and not a squeak about illegal immigration, which the Telegraph reported yesterday is now being used by the Iranian regime to install terror agents in this country. And yet, not a squeak out of Andy Burnham on that one. No reference to illegal immigration, which the Sun on Sunday newspaper are reporting this morning, sees a scenario in which an extraordinarily violent attack happened in France this week involving a migrant gang and involving a Frenchman being murdered. Where are those people? Where is that little gang? They are on a boat on their way over to us, and yet not a squeak from Andy Burnham about illegal immigration, which is an economic, societal, a national security disaster. If Andy Burnham wants to be the northern working class hero, the quickest route would be to scrap net zero, cut taxes on working people, support businesses so we can unlock millions of jobs, and stop the boats. It's barely been a week, and so far, not so good. He may like pork scratchings, but he'll make a pig's ear of running the country. 0344 499 1000. Annunziata Rees-Mogg is the head of communications for Popular Conservatism and former MEP. Annunziata, welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Let me put my teeth back in. Illegal immigration is a national security, economic and societal emergency. And here we go again with this shocking front page of the Sun on Sun newspaper, in which a gang of murderous thugs appear to be heading our way.
It's completely unbelievable, and we've seen what happened in Berlin last night, where the local police have said the suspect is a member of the Islamist scene. Well, I don't think we want to encourage Islamist scenes. Being Muslim is one thing, being Islamist is hugely different and very dangerous to our countries.
And we've been here before. You've got, if you're just joining us, the shocking developing story that 16 people have been mown down by a suspected Islamist terrorist in Germany. Someone, of course, known to the authorities because, Annunziata, they always are. One person has been killed, 16 people badly injured. Of course, others, no doubt, traumatised. We had Bondi Beach. We've had Manchester Arena. The list goes on. When are those that govern us, Annunziata, going to wake up?
These are real threats to our democracies, our way of life and our safety. And our borders could barely be more porous if they tried. We now have these enormous boats. We call it a small boats crisis. I don't call a boat that takes over 150 people either small or really a dinghy. It's kind of a big vessel. And they're not being stopped. They're finding ways around everything that's been done. The only way to stop it is to stop the incentives of coming here. We can't stop speaking English, which is one of them, but we can certainly stop giving them benefits, hotel accommodation, HMOs, letting them disappear into the black market, and claiming human rights so that they can stay. There is a fantastic database on the Times. I think it's called Times Data. And it has as one of its positives, this will be my only criticism of it, it's a fascinating section of the paper, but it has one of its sections, the success rate of asylum claims, and it is going up and up. These people are claiming rights to be here for things that British people do not think are rights. We've got to get control back of our laws. We've got to leave the ECHR, and we've got to stop the incentives of coming here and letting people stay.
Most definitely, I completely agree. And, you know, if you look at what happened in Berlin yesterday, the target is always a very Western target, isn't it? On that occasion, gay pride, celebration of sexual freedom and personal autonomy. Christmas markets are targeted, of course, national landmarks, war memorials. The threat is towards the entirety of Western civilization, and we've imported it. And to a great degree, this wicked ideology is now quite embedded, Annunziata, isn't it?
It certainly seems to be, and the figures show that, for example, the threats to women are higher from certain cultural backgrounds. But we're doing nothing about it. We're allowing it to continue. And we've got a new Prime Minister. You might have hoped he'd kept Shabana Mahmood, who is the first Labour MP to really come out with some decent policies on how to stop this crisis continuing. And yet he hasn't said a word on it. He's had a week in power. He's said a lot about pork scratchings, nothing on the big issues of the day.
Scratching the bottom of the barrel. Annunziata, let's take a listen to our new Prime Minister describing the best day of his life.
I cannot tell you what a proud moment this is. I think this might be the best day of my life. I'm not joking either. I know you think I am, but I'm not. Things are just completely coming full circle here for me, and to be here with you all in the heart of Manchester this Friday morning at the end of, a fairly big week is just everything to me. Opportunity has not been evenly spread around the country, and not all places have felt that they're part of the national story. And that is what this government is going to work every single day to change. And that is what Number 10 North is all about. Putting power in every postcode so that people can turn things around for themselves and make changes, just as this great city has done and the other English cities are doing through devolution. It's also about getting the whole country facing the same way and then pulling in the same direction.
Perhaps, Annunciata, I've been very unfair on Andy Burnham, an experienced politician with, of course, having had a stint within the Blair Project and in Gordon Brown's cabinet, somebody that has won plaudits as the Greater Manchester mayor, an experienced man, a decent man. He deserves a crack of the whip. Is that a reasonable position to actually get behind this guy and say, no, Andy can win?
Well, I think we all want the best for our country, and so all of us hope he can get some things right. But I'm not feeling enthused about that. I think he has learned the wrong things out of the Blair playbook. He's done the personable man of the people act that I found so cringe when I was a teenager under Tony Blair. And I still find my toes curling with Andy Burnham now. It just bring the sick bucket. I want to give him a chance, of course, because we do want our country to turn a corner, to become safer, to become more economically successful, to become more affordable for everyone to live in. But that's not what he's talking about. What he didn't learn from Blair was that you need to follow conservative, small c, spending plans, that you need to keep things economically viable, that you can't just put up taxes and think that that will somehow generate growth, that there is no magic money tree. So he's learnt the presentation, but not the better policies. And Blair had many terrible policies, don't misunderstand me. But economically, he stuck to the Tory spending plans, and that gave him years of solid economic growth. Andy Burnham seems to have not taken the decent lessons. He's doing the totally performative and, frankly, vomit-inducing side of personality politics.
And I'm going to go rapid fire with three things before the break, and I'm delighted you're staying with us, Annunciata, but let's just start with the economic stuff. The guy has had a free pass from the press this week, a lot of positive PR. If you were to believe establishment media, you would think he's saving the pubs, and we're also going to save a fortune on our electricity bills. This is the breathing room, and unfortunately the media have swallowed this hook, line and sinker, but you know a spreadsheet when you see one, Annunciata. You understand the economy and finances and the international markets, all the rest of it. Let's look at that VAT cut to electricity bills. It equates to 45 quid a year.
Yep.
Now that's not going to touch the sides for anyone, is it?
80p a week. 80p a week is going to make no difference.
I mean, even if you're on the bread
anyone.
line, you're not going to feel 80p a week, are you?
It's just not.
It's a trivial.
changed.
Would you call that a
doesn't
trivial
move the
sum?
dial. It's absolutely trivial. Of course, I think that taxes should be cut. So please bring on more of it. But this one is a complete sideshow.
And what about the cavalry for the pubs? They're going to save £1,000 a year. I mean, they need £1,000 a day to survive, some of them, Annunciata.
And again, bring it back down to the immediate. That's £3 a day. That's not even one pint. It is not going to save them.
But he gets all the PR. But I'm unhappy, Annunciata. He gets the PR. Apparently he's saving the pubs, and people believe it.
They seem to be buying it, but talk to any landlord, and the two biggest things he could do is cut employment costs and cut VAT on the products they sell. He is not going anywhere near either of those. It's yet another sideshow.
And one quick one before the break, and you're coming back, Annunziata. I did notice this, and you'll notice this as a very loving mother, a very devoted spouse, no doubt, and a woman of deep personal faith. He described becoming Prime Minister as the best day of his life. Well, he's married and he's got children. Yikes.
Yep.
Do you not think? Am I missing something here? I got 2 boys, and those were the best days of my life, Annunziata.
Well, I can't say that as a mother, birth is my favourite memory, but meeting my children for the first time, absolutely. Marrying the love of my life, right up there too.
And what a lucky old devil he is.
Nothing professionally can come close to those
I think he said, just not over-analysing it, I think he said the true bit out loud. Best day of my life. He's forgot his wedding day. He's got the birth of his kids. I think, I'm working on a theory here. I think he's a narcissist and I think he's a con man. I know it's very harsh words, but I just want to get it out there on the national record. That's my view.
I was going to say egotist, that absolutely, it's all about him. It's all about power. It's all about being the centre of attention and having nothing to do with that power. He doesn't seem to have a plan or a vision, and I fear things are only going to get worse.
Annunziata, we're always so honoured to have you on the show, and I've muffed up the timings, which means that I shall wish you à bientôt, but we will catch up very soon. Thank you for your wisdom and your time. You always go down a storm with our audience when you're on. Annunziata Rees-Mogg, Head of Communications for Popular Conservative and former MEP as well. Next up, more on this terror attack in Berlin. When is the West going to wake up? This is Talk.
Absolutely nothing like a jail, which is
Talk. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This.
Now, we're bringing you the breaking news that the German authorities are participating in a manhunt to find an alleged Islamist killer, because we have a situation in which the Berlin Gay Pride event yesterday saw the most extraordinary violence. A van was used to mow down several people. 16 people, I believe, were involved. One person has died. Let's get reaction from the political theorist and broadcaster, Ralph Schollhammer. Ralph, great to see you again.
Mark, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for coming on at such short notice. And here we go again, you know, Bondi Beach, Manchester Arena, another attack on a Western target.
Yeah, another lone wolf attack by somebody who was apparently known by the authorities. So I guess it's not a lone wolf, it's a known wolf.
Yeah.
And it's very often the very same pattern. I mean, this is very frustrating. And it's particularly frustrating if you recall there was this interview done by The Economist with Elon Musk a couple of days ago, where basically the lady who interviewed him said that all these fears of mass migration and Islamization are completely made up. And now, barely 48 hours later, you have another Islamist-inspired, or whatever you want to call it, attack in Berlin, which tragically, right, was hitting the very people who I'm pretty sure many of those who are now injured, and, you know, my heart goes out to them, but I'm very sure that many of them just a few weeks ago probably were out with, Palestine flags and Queer for Palestine marches.
Well, that's right, because this gay pride event, which of course I support because you can live your life as you wish. I know that you're a big libertarian yourself as well, Ralph. But
not at all.
You're old-fashioned. But the bottom line is that it is the progressive left who have been the cheerleaders for these radical Islamists, the useful idiots. And now, as we predicted, these ideologues, these fascists, are coming for them.
Yeah, but I think to a certain extent, Mark, you and I also participate in this problem. I do it too, so this is not an insult to you. But for example, you used now the phrase the radical Islamists. So we have Islam, we have Islamists, and we also have the radical Islamists. We don't do this kind of differentiation with any other ideology. I never heard anybody say during a debate, well, yeah, Hitler was really bad, but there were also the less radical Nazis, and we could work with them. We don't do this. At a certain point, the Muslim community have to take care of their own. This is a responsibility. We must speak openly about this. If there is something like Islamophobia, right, where all Muslims stand together on this, which is fine by me, we also have to say that at a certain point, how is it possible that so many members of your community get radicalized? I know, a sensitive topic, but we have to speak openly about this. This does not come out of nowhere. From Manchester, the Ariana Grande concert, you mentioned it, to Bondi Beach, to now Berlin, and these are just the most recent incidents. This does not come from nowhere. If you have a religion, a group, an ideology, out of which a significant subset is willing to execute such crimes, such terrorist attacks, we have to talk to the broader issue as well.
When are these Western governments going to wake up to the importance of national identity, social cohesion, and the rule of law? Because if I look at Germany, if I look at the United Kingdom, if I look at France, I'm seeing civilizational decline.
Well, I would say that at least those who are currently in charge, and that's my most important message to your viewers, they don't think the problem is real. This is why I advise anyone to watch this interview with Elon Musk.
It's brilliant.
Sorry?
It's brilliant because he dismantles a very establishment journalist who says, when he talks about civilizational collapse, she says, nothing to see here. I live in London and everything is the land of milk and honey. Why? Because she's living in a comfortable 4-bedroom house in North London, probably.
And not even that, right? Everybody then went out and said, look at the murder rate in London, it's down. But they don't understand. Most people judge their security situation just based on the murder rate. It is a sense, a feeling. When you go outside the front door, do you feel as safe, or is the trend the same as it was in the past? And everybody feels that things are deteriorating. I mean, this idea, I looked up the recent polls, that 23% of voters in the UK would give their vote to the Reform Party, which is fine by me, by the way, or a smaller percentage, Rupert Lowe's Restore. That this is just because of tweets by Elon Musk is completely insane. But this is what they believe. This is what the economists believe. This is what Der Spiegel believes. This is what Friedrich Merz believes. This is what Andy Burnham believes. They all believe if only we would not talk about mass migration, we wouldn't have those problems. They don't take you and your problems seriously. They pay lip service to it because they want your vote, but they do not care about your problems. And I mean the British people, I mean the continental European peoples, I mean all of them. We need change very quickly.
We most certainly do. The AfD is a more right-wing party in Germany. Will they benefit from this horror of the last 24 hours? Do you think that change is coming to a country like Germany? Because we know that Marine Le Pen is in pole position in France. What about Germany?
Well, I think I know what you're saying and I agree, but I don't like the term benefit, because this is like saying that if you're a successful surgeon that treats cancer patients, one would say, well, don't you benefit from cancer being around?
Of course.
To a certain extent, but you still want to fight the disease. Right, and I think it's the same thing here. If Germany, if France, if they would have executed sensible migration policies, there would be no AfD, right? Le Pen would not be necessary.
Correct. There would be no Nigel Farage.
Exactly. So they don't get it. They still think that the symptom is the actual problem. It's the other way around. They failed and they're still not willing to admit their failure. And as long as they don't, we have not reached the ceiling. So those 23% of reform, I think there is still a lot of space to go even higher.
Well, that's interesting. So your view is that the establishment know they've messed up and are afraid to admit that. So they're basically all in, a little bit like the authorities during COVID. Once you've had the lockdowns and the vaccine tyranny, you've got to defend it forevermore. Is that your interpretation of it, that privately the establishment know they've messed up, but it's too late?
No, what I think is that they believe that problem only exists because people talk about it.
Right.
This is my sincere conviction. This is why they always attack Elon Musk. This is why they attack X. This is why they want, chat controls like in the European Union. This is why they want age limits and identifications if you want to use social media, because they think if we don't talk about the problem, there won't be a problem. But of course, this is never how it works.
Ralph, before I let you go, you often say it's 5 minutes to midnight for the West. How's that clock looking at the moment?
No, I still believe that the ship can be turned around. But of course, it also depends now on the courage of the voters. If they once again allow themselves, have the wool pulled over their eyes and say, OK, now the Tories get it. Now the Christian conservatives get it. Now whoever gets it. OK, then it's your fault. It is time for new parties. And if they fail, we vote them out again. But I think it is time that somebody else gets at the helm of the ship.
Ralph, you're a hero. It's so much of a pleasure and a privilege to have you on. I wish it was happier circumstances, but we will speak very soon. Ralph Schellhammer is a political theorist and broadcaster. Thank you, Ralph. A fascinating and important interview. We'll bring you more on that when we get it. Will Andy Burnham stop the boats? Does he care about illegal immigration, which is being used by the Iranian government to put terrorists on British soil? 9:34 Talk Breakfast. Talk. Andrew Lowney is the journalist and royal author who brought down Andrew Mountbatten Windsor with the book entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. He joins me now. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Mark.
Andrew, I understand you have some new developments in regard to Sarah Ferguson's charity commitments.
Well, it's very interesting. They've closed Sarah's Trust, which is a charity she set up to help other charities. There've always been big suspicions about Sarah's Trust, indeed all of Sarah's charities, and indeed the charities that were set up by her children, and indeed Andrew, often for sex-trafficked women, which is rather ironic. But she was raising large sums of money, and the money wasn't really being spent. It was being used up in salaries and things. And charity has always been used by the York family really to launder their reputations, to enhance their social lives, and to give them introductions to useful people they could then work on for their financial activities. So I welcome this, and this is long overdue. Of course, the Charity Commission have also been looking at Eugenie's charity, the Anti-Slavery Collective, which again raised money it didn't spend. And their charities over the years that Andrew was involved in, which were basically started, got some publicity, and then nothing actually happened with them.
And this is a further blow to Fergie's ailing and toxic brand. We know that she's not got any money coming in, but she hasn't even got the charitable work, the philanthropy to fall back on in terms of her public profile.
Well, I mean, I think the interesting thing is that Fergie is the Houdini of the royal family. She always kind of escapes. And she's been given a lifeline by the death of Paddy McNally, her old boyfriend, who had always supported her, lent her properties to stay in. She went and stayed in his property in Verbier after she fled Royal Lodge. And I think it looks very likely that he has left her a large part of his huge fortune. And so she is going to be okay.
Might that be a house or some kind of cash windfall? Would it be of that scale?
Well, it could be his son. One of his sons predeceased him, so I think he was changing his will until pretty late. So I think it's probably a trust which is paying her a regular income, because I think if she was given one big sum, she would blow it. That was what they did with the divorce settlement. I mean, there's stories that he actually bought her a house in Geneva years ago. But yes, I think she's got lots of money from him, and this is going to ease her financial problems, because basically she is unemployable at the moment. No one wants to be involved with her.
How was she able to achieve that with Paddy McNally, to have him under her spell for so long? This is an accomplished entrepreneur, a talented and intelligent man. How is it that Fergie gets so many people to be her friend when she's in a corner?
She's a lucky general. She does inspire a lot of loyalty from her friends. I mean, she's a good friend herself. She's very charismatic. She's very manipulative. I mean, she worked on Andrew and the royal family. That's why she was able to stay in the Royal Lodge for so long. And, you know, neither Andrew nor Paddy McNally really treated her very well. And she's played on that emotional blackmail to basically get them to bankroll her for the last 40 years. So she's a very, very shrewd cookie, the Becky Sharp, I think, of the royal family as well.
Does she groom people? Is that language that you would use?
Yes, I think that's probably a fair estimation. I mean, her secretaries talk about how they were always being sent out to basically draw people into the net for financial, basically, benefit. But yes, she does work on people, and she is very, very persuasive. I mean, I've met her. She's very charming. She kind of draws you in, lulls you in. But she's very sort of bipolar, really. She can snap in a minute from being your friend to being your worst enemy.
Has she got that nasty, ruthless side? Because that's not her public image. Is there a dark side to Fergie, Andrew?
Yes, there is. I mean, I tried to show it in Entitled. I mean, certainly the impression you get when you talk to certainly her staff members and people who know her well. But yeah, she plays the ditzy redhead as the sort of rather kooky Sloane Ranger, a bit like a Labrador. You want to pat her on the head, but actually she is a very, very, as I say, manipulative and ruthless character, and she will turn on people very quickly if they don't serve her ends. And that's a story that's never really emerged properly. But we've seen a little bit in the Epstein files, the way that she cozied up to Epstein, the way that she was taking money off him and publicly saying one thing, disowning him, and in private still staying at his properties years after she'd supposedly broken off contact.
We know that she plays the victim, this sort of faux victim narrative, poor me. She's also flirtatious. Has Fergie, in your view, ever used sex as a way of getting what she wants?
Absolutely. I mean, she sweetens the deal often with these mentors. She has a long history of sleeping with people who've given her money. Sex for her is a very sort of, she's very open about it, and has had lots of sexual relationships. She's quite sort of I mean, a lot of it's transactional, but she can be also quite predatory. And so poor old Tiger Woods was chased across the states when she took a fancy to him. Kevin Costner, John F. Kennedy Jr., there was a tennis player called Thomas Muster. I mean, she went after all of them. I mean, literally getting on planes and going to Australia. So when she wants something, she can be very determined.
Yes, and this is not libido, is it? It's leverage.
Yes, sex is just one of the instruments that she uses in her sort of range of weapons. Yeah, I mean, sex is certainly very much part of the story. I mean, she had a relationship with Epstein, and that was certainly with a number of these, and particularly American financial backers, there was always sex involved.
Most definitely. Well, of course, Sarah Ferguson is not here to defend herself and would challenge these allegations. Worth noting also that this supposedly friendly public figure in Sarah Ferguson made every effort, Andrew, to silence you in your work as a journalist.
Yes, I mean, I was receiving letters from her lawyers saying they were monitoring my social media even before the book came out. And there's clearly been a lot of briefing against me and against the book. So, yes, I mean, she worked very hard to suppress previous books on her. Alan Starkey, a previous boyfriend, a business consultant, she actually tried to take to court. And it's ironic that she gets everyone to sign NDAs around her, and yet she's breaking NDAs that she's signed herself, including after her divorce from Andrew.
Here's a question you may struggle to answer, though, Andrew. Where is Fergie?
Well, I mean, my own suspicion is that she has been put up by friends, I mean, probably by Paddy McNally. I think the story was that she'd been in Verbier at one of his chalets there. She may well have been staying at his house in Britain. So I think that's the most likely scenario. She has a lot of friends who, and this is what's happened in the past, where she's basically taken refuge with friends. Tim Rice at one point offered her refuge at a house and he owned in Cornwall on a previous occasion. But she has lots of people who are very rich and can easily take her in and no one would know she was there.
I'm hearing from you, Andrew, notwithstanding your misgivings about her conduct and alleged crimes, that she's a survivor and, as is the theme of her life, she will always bounce back.
Yes, I mean, you know, she's done it so many times before. I mean, we've got to remember in 2010, she was caught on film selling access to Prince Andrew for £500,000. That would have been the end of most people. And yet, you know, she did a confessional interview with Oprah. She wrote a book. She said, promised to do better next time. And then she just repeats all the same mistakes. And there is a demographic who kind of buy into this, that this is someone who's been kind of put down by the establishment, that she's, as you say, a victim. And they get hope from the fact that, you know, she fights back and can kind of rescue herself. But so I don't think we've heard the last of Fergie. I think the royal family must be breathing a sigh of relief. There were rumours that she was selling it as trying to write a tell-all book. And presumably that will now have been no longer necessary with the Paddy McNally money, if he has given money, which I suspect he has.
Of course, that is the nuclear weapon, isn't it? Because she's written plenty of books in the past about her life, but they've all been very vanilla, Andrew. Interesting that you think perhaps the financial emergency is no longer there. She may not seek to tell that story. Do we know what the girls think of their mum these days?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, we have Eugenie about to have a third child. I mean, my understanding is that she doesn't want her parents at the birth. I mean, this may be partly because she just doesn't want the attention. She does seem to, I mean, Eugenie does seem to have cut loose, at least in public, from her father. But again, with the Yorks, what happens in public and what goes on behind the scenes are two very different things. So I think for public consumption, the line is the daughters are distancing themselves. They see their parents as toxic. I think in reality, there's still contact there. We've got to remember that the daughters' whole careers are predicated on their links to the royal family and the contacts they built up accompanying their father on his taxpayer-funded trade envoy trips. So they're going to try and keep in. I mean, their jobs do rely on these contacts and they're not going to sacrifice those. They won't want to lose their titles and they will want to keep the king happy. So I think they're walking a very delicate tightrope in public, though actually say what happens in private is maybe another thing.
And perhaps her desire for Beatrice and Eugenie to keep their HRH titles is another reason why she won't do a tell-all book, because if she presses the nuclear button, well, then the girls are in trouble.
Yes, I mean, that's always the pressure that's been put on her. And indeed, when they got divorced, the pressure was that, you know, she wouldn't have custody of the children. I mean, of course, there are other ways of getting these stories out. I mean, Fergie has a long history of feeding, having tamed journalists that she feeds stories to. And I mean, she could do it Sir Andrew Morton, find some figure to tell the story to, or do it through various cutouts, I mean, like Owen Scobie did. So, I mean, she could try and keep her hands clean and still dish the dirt. I think there's still a strong sense of revenge against the royal family, particularly against the king, the Queen, and one or two other members of the royal family. So I wouldn't put it past her to have a few digs, even though she doesn't appear to be writing a book.
Andrew, a difficult question to answer, but do you think that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor may now be through the worst of the Epstein scandal?
Well, we just don't know. I mean, there's a lot more material that could be released from the Epstein files and may well be released. And if that's the case, then that will be damaging. I think that the strategy of the royal family is just to say nothing and hope the problem goes away and the news agenda moves on. But, you know, there is a lot of very incriminating material in those Epstein revelations. The fact that he was sharing secrets with foreign-born people, very sensitive diplomatic, military and commercial secrets, and basically grounds, I think, on that evidence to charge him with treason, with breaking the Official Secrets Act. Now, whether the police want to go there, whether the royal family want their dirty linen aired in public with a trial is another question. So I do think probably he's another Houdini figure. He'll jump on a plane to Abu Dhabi if things look like getting a little bit hot, and he'll get away. And of course, it's ever been so that the rich and powerful never seem to face the consequences of their actions.
And the king has run out of levers to pull in relation to his younger brother, wouldn't you say? He's lost his dukedom, HRH, he's no longer at the Royal Lodge. There's not too much more the king can do in relation to Andrew. He's a hostage to fortune, our monarch, isn't he?
Well, I'm not sure that's the case. I think there are things that he could do. I mean, we know that 33,000 emails were passed the palace 6 years ago. These were hacked emails about from Andrew's business partner, Jonathan Rhodes. We don't know, and it doesn't seem to have happened, that material has ever been passed to the police, even now. The word that I'm getting is that policemen have been reminded of their obligations of confidentiality. And so, again, in public, while the king is saying the law must take its course, there's no real evidence that he is cooperating with law enforcement. Law enforcement seems to have gone very quiet. I mean, we've got this ridiculous situation where Thames police are talking to Virginia Giuffre's relations who know nothing about the case, when they ignored the allegations Virginia Giuffre herself made when she was alive. And we have to remember that this case is not just about Virginia Giuffre, it's about a whole series of women who were trafficked to Andrew, and also about this misconduct in public office. So that's a real red herring. It's again back to the smoke and mirrors approach to this story. So I'm not very confident. I mean, Police Scotland don't seem to be investigating him, and yet many of the girls were trafficked to Balmoral.
Andrew, can we look forward to an updated version of Entitled? What are you working on at the moment? Are you able to tell us?
Yeah, I am. I mean, Entitled came out as an updated paperback with another 40 pages about a month ago. And I'm now working on a sequel, which will take a few years, called Untitled, which takes the story forward. I'm also returned to a book on Prince Philip, who I've always admired, a very different character to his son. And so maybe people will realise I'm not out to get the royal family, but just out to tell the truth. And so far, Prince Philip emerges as a very interesting and very admirable character.
Well, listen, congratulations on the release of the updated version of Entitled, out for a month with obviously lots of juicy new material. When might we expect the Philip book? Because I admire him too. He was very much the Queen's rock. Could that be out, what, are we looking at next year now for that?
Well, no, I mean, these books take about three to 4 years to research, and there's often a year between delivery and publication. So normally I'm on a 4-year cycle, so that would be about 3 years' time.
Well, always a privilege to have you on the show. And Andrew, thank you very much for your insight into the goings-on for Sarah Ferguson and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Andrew Loney is the author of Entitled, The Rise and Fall of the House of York, the latest edition of which is out now, I should say. Lots more to come, 9:52, Talk Breakfast.
Intention to run for a fourth term as President of the United States. I won 3 times, did very well the second time, by the way. It's a rigged election, but we don't have to talk about it.
It's an entire community in their heads, and he knows how to push it and literally send them off. I thought he was actually more restrained last night than we've seen in just his regular speeches. I mean, he's got comedic timing. He is the funniest president we've ever had, and man, he was playing it on all fours last night.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side.
If Andy Burnham calls a snap general election for November of this year, are Reform ready to fight it? Nigel is in Old Reekie, the capital of Scotland, Edinburgh. Good morning, Nigel. I've got the Midas touch. Nigel has hung up. Get me Laura Jane, because she's going to drop a few truth bombs. I'm looking forward to that. Folks, it's been such a busy show. I'm so grateful for all of the messages, the voice notes that have come in. It's been very, very busy indeed. And the theme is very clear. The establishment don't care about the people of this country. And it's all about secondary issues like illegal immigration and net zero, stuff that exists outside of the focal point of this country, and it's got to change. Nigel is back. Hello, Nigel.
Good morning, Mark.
Lovely to have you on the show. Is our Reform UK ready for a snap election?
No, I don't think anyone on the right is ready. And I came in at about 7:30 this morning. Somebody said Rupert was an insignificant player. Unfortunately, that's totally incorrect. At the moment, Zia Youssef arrived and Farage and he got rid of Rupert, who was the obvious Home Secretary in waiting. Reform, which at that point were heading towards 40% in the polls, started going backwards. And I think it was Salvation last week now have them level with it. That's where it's wrong. And
Nigel, listen, we love hearing your wise words, but the line is terrible, which is why we lost you a second ago. But I do think that Reform UK have got their work cut out. If Andy Burnham calls a snap election, here's the logic. It's November of this year, so he goes to Labour Party conference for his victory lap. And at the end of his speech, and he goes, one more thing. I'm going to call a snap election so I can have my mandate. And I just wonder whether for Andy Burnham, it's that sweet spot where we haven't quite discovered how rubbish he is yet. And Reform unprepared, the Tories still in recovery mode. It's a moment of peril, I think. This autumn is a moment of peril for the political right. Reform are still getting their policies together, still crunching the numbers, still vetting candidates, still putting together a manifesto, still having to make the numbers add up. You've got Kemi, who's bringing about a recovery to the Tories, but she's popular, the party is not. So I think that this is a moment of peril for the political right. I think by next year, don't worry about it. If there's no election in November, then everything is going to get worse. The growth will probably slide into recession. Inflation will go up, partly because of the war in Iran. Then you're likely to have more unemployment. and things will definitely feel worse for ordinary working Brits. At that point, Labour are done and dusted. So there's a window of opportunity for the very, very strategic Andy Burnham, who, notwithstanding that I believe he's a con man and a charlatan, he is strategically astute. Proof of that is that actually... Now, let's take a call. The bottom line is that he may not be a good Prime Minister, but he knows how to become Prime Minister, and that is all that matters. So it's an interesting conversation. Thank you for all of your messages and voice notes. It's been a very, very packed show. We'll do it all again. Actually, I'm away for a little while, not by choice, but because of how the rota has worked out. So I'm back on Saturday breakfast at 6 a.m. next week. Looking forward to that. The brilliant Alex Phillips. Are you plugged in, Alex?
No. Yeah, I am.
You always are. You were born plugged in.
I'm not sure that's true. I feel a bit deplugged today.
Listen, an interesting story, a horrific story. Berlin, Gay Pride March, here we go again. Another Western target.
Yeah, and I mean, Germany really seems to be at the thick end of this. And of course, it was Germany who started the whole refugees welcome with Angela Merkel. You import people from the violent Middle East, and this is what you're going to get. And it's a tragedy. It's a real tragedy. I just wonder how long it's going to take for the Queers for Palestine lot to turn up.
They've gone very, very quiet, haven't they? And this is what we said, is that actually if you are the cheerleader of the Islamists, eventually they will come for you.
Well, exactly, they will. And I don't know, it's really sad news. It's not a surprise. It's going to happen here at some point.
Now, Andy Burnham, snap election in November. What do you reckon?
I reckon. I think we're going to hear about some things fairly soon. You can see what he's doing. He's sort of breadcrumbing, isn't he? He's throwing out these little policies, these tidbits to try and sort of elevate him. And I think if they look